printer to make that happen.
Of course.
You know, I figured that for as low as the price of it, even though it's 6 buttons versus 15.
Yeah, that's fine.
I was like, you know what? It's pretty fucking cheap. And the next time we get like a payment thing, and I'll just fucking take some money out and cover the cost of it.
Yeah, that's fine.
Because it'd be way easier just to go dupe.
Yeah.
And have it do all the things.
Have it dupe. All right, go ahead and get me recording.
I have to get really good at like if-then statements.
Yes.
Because that's entirely what it is. It's do this, then this, then this, then this. In this order. All right, we're live already, so you want to go ahead and start talking?
Sure. Should America be making more of an effort to remake foreign film masterpieces? Adventurers, gear up for an all-new episode. Greetings, adventurers, and welcome to the show. We are the Surly Nerd, your one-stop shop for geek news that might have flown under your radar over the last week. I'm your host, James, and sitting across from me is the producer of this fine show, Tony.
I am the only person not sick.
That is true. That is very
Because Hector is out sick.
Yes.
You're still sounding a little bit.
I'm still.
But you're way better than you were
it was
the past week.
Very hellish last.
Like
6
we recorded
days.
last week's episode, and then like you just died.
Yeah, pretty much. I have very little recollection of how last week went down. So
I'm the only one that's still good. It's great.
Yeah. So if you're new to our show, welcome. This week we're going to be talking about bringing foreign films to the United States. But before that, we have a recap of all the nerd news that's fit to rant about for your ears. Don't forget that you can keep connected with us at thesurlynerd.com. You can follow us on all social media platforms and even donate to the show. Every penny donated goes right back into the show that we make for you every week. With all that out of the way, ladies and gentlemen, adventurers of all ages, it's time for The Prelude.
This is the part that I'm worried about us fucking up on. Prelude.
All right, this is The Prelude. This is what we've been doing with ourselves this week, what we've been playing, what we've been watching, what's been occupying our free time. Man, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and start this thing. I don't have a whole lot because I was laid up sick for 6 days. And you would think that 6 days of being laid up with the flu would really give you time to like hunker down in your list of things that you really want to watch.
I'm going to put on a series and I'm going to watch.
And you're like, yeah, I'm going to really just like, I haven't watched Altered Carbon yet. I'm just going to tear through that or something. No, I laid on the couch and in and out of like bouts of NyQuil, I basically just watched Anthony Bourdain and was sat on the couch. That was my week. So, I mean, it was not very eventful. I did watch the Ken Jeong Netflix special.
I didn't even know there was a Netflix special for this.
Yes, it's called. I think it's called something like "I Love You, Ho," because his wife's last name.
Oh,
is
Dr. Ken. Yes,
Dr.
sorry.
Ken.
For a second, I forgot who you were talking about.
Dr. Ken.
I thought you were talking about Kim Jong Un, and I was like,
No.
wait, why did they do a special? What did I miss?
No. And it's a really cool Netflix special if you appreciate him as a comedian. Obviously, a lot of people know him from The Hangover. It is less of a stand-up special than it is really just his life. And I understand that.
Yeah, that's what he's always done his comedy, though. His comedy's more of like a elongated spoken word thing where there's funny parts in it.
Yeah, and so, like, a lot of stand-up has a very beat for beat to it. You're waiting for the punchline, With his comedy, it's really just, all right, I'm here. This is why I'm here. Let me tell you about my wife. Let me tell you about my family. And there's just funny stuff happens in between.
Yeah. So I'm not the biggest follower of his career, obviously. I know you've watched his TV show previously. I think it was called Dr. Ken. It's been canceled, so sorry anybody wants to watch that. Yeah. But I did know that his wife died, and that's what like spurred him to like change his career and do things.
No. His wife didn't die. That was not a part of it.
I thought it was like a first wife died.
Oh, I don't.
And then... he was a doctor.
If that is a part of his life, that was not discussed.
Okay, so that's not something he brings up in this one, but my understanding of his life was his wife died, and he said, "Fuck it, I'm gonna go and change my career and do things wherever I have like time and money. I can do this right now."
Right.
And that allowed him to do comedy, which led him to do The Hangover, which allowed him to do this. Became fucking big ass star. to be on TV and do all these specials
Really,
and
I would
stuff.
just say it's worth an hour of your time.
And then he got married again, which is what I didn't think he was ever going to get married again.
Right.
And that was the reason why this special was something I did want to watch, because I didn't expect him to ever get married because of the life-changing events.
It's just a fun ride. Just don't expect it to be your atypical stand-up, because he just doesn't do that.
Yeah. So that's good. So you would recommend?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're a fan of his work, other than that, like if you're just a fan of comedy specials, I don't think it's for you. But you have to be a fan of him.
So I had someone over at the apartment the other day. We were watching YouTube for a couple of minutes, so like while we're eating or whatever.
Sure.
And I put on his. He has a thing for Wired where he answers medical questions.
Right, because he was a doctor.
Yeah, because he is a doctor.
Yes.
He doesn't. You don't just stop being a doctor. He still is a doctor. And he's answering. This is the second time he's answered medical questions for Wired. And I put that on, and I was like, "Oh, cool! I'll just watch him answer weird medical questions, you know, from tweets." And she's like, "Why is he answering medical questions? Why is this?" I was like, "Because he's a doctor." And he's like, "Yeah, no, like, but he's not." And I'm like, "Yeah, he is. He's legit. Like, there's a reason why he's answering medical questions.
Yeah,
he's a doctor."
There's a scene in the stand-up where he's talking about being on a plane and like somebody's having a stroke or something, and like somebody actually on the plane was like, "Is there a doctor in the house?" And he like stood up and he was like, "I was a doctor," and they're all just staring at him like, "This is not the appropriate time to be making a joke."
No, he's and that's what I like about him. He's funny and also a doctor, so that's always cool. Funniest doctor in the world, in my opinion.
Probably. What about you, Tony? What did you do this week?
I played some video game. I did not play Anthem. I was actually hoping Hector was going to be here so we could rip into some Anthem stock. Because I think I've decided I'm just not going to play it.
Really? After you had your first impression,
when I saw the first trailer, I was like, holy fuck, I'm excited as hell.
You followed this game for months.
For a year solid. I've been watching nothing. I've been watching like nonstop, every piece of information I can, always on the subreddit, just digging for information about this game. And at this point, because I didn't want to, I was like, I really want to, after playing the VIP beta or whatever, I was like, this isn't really that fun.
Okay.
I was like, I didn't have that much fun. The story seems really interesting. And I will amend my statement. I think I will pay $5 to access EA's whatever thing
on Origin
for 1 month to play the story.
Okay.
And then after that, just immediately cancel it and give them.
There's a lot of parallels that are being drawn between the launch of Anthem and Destiny 2, with the exception of the fact that Destiny 2 had a very much larger story to begin with.
That's the hard thing to believe, that Destiny 2 had a larger story.
Well, there was more content upon the release of Destiny 2.
And that's something that like I've tried to defend Anthem to people that even though I have yet to play the full game, I'm defending it in the I see their release schedule and you're like, well, the Raiden stuff isn't coming for a couple more weeks.
Right.
This stuff is still coming out. They still have all these other things planned. You can't just say I need all of it in 1 week. This is all the people who bitched and complained about Destiny 2 not having enough content, not having all of these things, went from the Destiny 2 subreddit to the Anthem subreddit. I can literally see the post. Like the moment the game officially relaunched on the 22nd or whatever the day it was, everybody started immediately bitching about the content release of it. And that's the same people that were bitching about Destiny 2's content. And if you go further back, bitching about Diablo 3's content.
Right.
And
it's actually just the same people.
Yeah, it's the same people bitching about the same thing, because it's casual players bitching about how I've already reached max level. Why isn't there more to do?
Right.
Like, why did I spend $60 on this game when there isn't more to come out? It's like it's an ongoing world. We have to add more to the world as it goes on.
Right, and I understand that as somebody who plays or did play Final Fantasy Online, because as I've talked about before in the past, when a Final Fantasy 14 expansion comes out, you can burn through the content if you really want to. You're not supposed to right away, but within the first month of that launch, and you've played the single player content, then you get the next part of the expansion story, and it's something that comes out over time. It's a rollout over time. It's not meant for you to jump in, play for 20 hours a day for a week, and then just be done with it, right?
Yeah. So Anthem does suffer from the same problem as Diablo 3. When Diablo 3 first launched, its loot drop rate was abysmal. Its story was kind of convoluted and didn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And they had to change a lot within the game, whether it's UI and in the drop rate and how drops worked to make the fans happy. And that's the reason they came up with the Loot 2.0 system. And that has been everybody's kind of go-to saving, because they did a thing at GDC a while ago explaining Loot 2.0, and they're like, this is where our game failed. This is what we did to fix it.
Right.
And this is what we learned along the way.
Yeah.
And every time a game comes out that fails, Division did this. Division 2 is hopefully not, but probably going to do the same thing. Destiny 1 did this. Destiny 2 did this. Diablo 3 did this. Warframe, not so much, even though it's kind of in the same vein, but that's been an ongoing thing. It's free to play. It's different.
Right.
So Warframe's its own little separate beast.
Right.
But everybody's been failing from this exact same idea, which is we released the game, and it takes us a year to fix it because we didn't realize how it would actually work when it's in the hands of millions of players.
Right, but there's also this factor that people aren't considering. It's that, people that seem to be the loudest voices saying that Anthem's bad because there's not enough content, or they're lining up the numbers between when Destiny launched, this is what the content Destiny had compared to what Anthem had at launch. Which I understand people trying to make that measurement, but I don't think the people that made Anthem really expected players to, and maybe this is wrong on their part, by the way.
Yeah.
It could go either way. I don't think they expected people to be dropping, 20 to 23 hours a day into their game, when it first launches or before it even launches. Because we know somebody that played the pre-release.
So that's actually I never got to the point of saying why I wasn't going to pick it up.
Yeah.
Most of the people I played with for the VIP stuff, Hector, our friend Lash, Lash used to be on the show. Everybody I know that plays Anthem got it for the $15 early release on the early access Origin, whatever EA bullshit.
Right.
And I didn't because I was like, I really just don't want to spend $15 on this. Like, I mean, yes, it's less than 60, but I was like, I can wait a week and spend $5. I'm saving $10 by not playing, like just by waiting a week. That seems like logical sense to me. And I knew, like, I was on it was like the 6th day. I saw everybody going like, well, we're done with this. I was like, cool. So I have zero reason to play this. It's the same reason why I didn't get into Destiny on PC with them. They're gonna most of my friends are going to get bored in about a week,
right?
And they're gonna jump back to either what their old favorite was, or they're gonna go on to the next game. And I don't have next game money.
Right.
I don't have. I'm bored. I'm going to go play a new game money.
Right.
I play a game and I play it into the fucking dirt.
Right.
Which is why I play Destiny so much, because I can spend $100 for a year and beat the living fucking dick off this thing.
Right.
And I will still have not beaten everything.
Right. Now, Brooklyn brings up an interesting opinion. He says that he believes it was an objectively unfun gameplay experience. And that's something that I feel that conversation as to whether or not Anthem is fun is being vastly overshadowed by people trying to wave their dicks around and talk about how much content or lack of content is in the game.
Yeah, no. Whenever I played the VIP open thing, I had a fucking blast. Those story missions were great, with the one exception that is in the actual release game, where if you're going through the story, because of the way their matchmaking works, if there's already a team doing the story, you can get thrown into the middle of it, and you don't know what the fuck's going on because you've missed all that dialogue, you've missed all those story beats.
Yeah,
they're gone for you.
Right,
you don't get to do that again.
Yeah, I think that Anthem's something that I'm going to be genuinely.
Such a bad design on that part.
I'm going to be genuinely curious to see what people feel about it 6 months from now.
And then a year.
And then
a year's where everybody gives it, because it took Destiny 1 a year to get good.
Yeah.
It took Destiny 2 a year to get good. It took Division a year to get good. It took, Diablo 3 almost 2 years to get good.
It's true. Absolutely. Okay, well, that's everything we have for the prelude this week. We're going to take a small break. When we come back, we'll be going into level 1 comic book news.
Click some shit, you fucking bitch. I didn't even talk about the way I've been watching Stargate SG-1. Because they put all of Stargate SG-1 on fucking Amazon.
I feel like that's something I've always wanted to go back and watch. I've saw bits and pieces of it back in the day.
So it's weird. They have the sci-fi edit. Because the first, I know at least the first season, possibly the first 3, it was a Showtime series.
Yes, it was.
So I know it was at least for the first season. Mm-hmm. And I think up to the first 3 seasons were Showtime, and then Showtime canceled it. Sci-Fi bought it out and said, we'll just keep going and keep making it. Because they're part of the same corporate family, so we'll just take over doing it. But I know for a fact that the first season of Stargate had nudity in it, And it does not have that in this one. It's been edited out.
Like, you bastard, you took away my nudity.
There were boobs in the first one. I remember that. In the first episode in particular, there were boobs in that episode.
16-year-old you is very like there's an impression made on you when you
I was very much into the movie Stargate.
Yes, I was.
And then they were like, "We're making a TV show," and I was like, "Fuck yes, TV show." And then there were boobs. I was like, "Oh, this is just the best. This is the fucking best right now." There's boobs and weird alien Egyptian things. Awesome.
All right, let's talk some comics. There's some weird stuff to talk about in here.
Yeah, I saw that in the what you wanted to put in.
Mm-hmm.
Nope, wrong one. There we go. Still the wrong one. There we go. One day that's going to be a button.
Like 2 weeks from now.
Tomorrow. It comes tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you still have to learn how to program it. So
yeah, I still have to learn how to program it. But no, whenever I ordered it, it's like, it'll be here on Tuesday. I was like, oh, okay. Because it's being shipped from like the Best Buy down the street.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's Best Buy was running a deal for $69.99, then I got like an additional $10 off of that with the coupon code,
Sure.
so it made it $60. I was like,
Awesome.
yes, I will buy this thing for $60. All right. Level 1, comic book news.
Hey, adventurers, welcome back to the show. Archie Comics is no stranger to doing weird shit in their comics. It's pretty much just par for the course these days.
I'm really, actually, that brings up an interesting idea I just had. Why haven't we got an Archie Comics Stranger Things crossover? Like, it seems like the most logical thing to happen.
Probably wait for IDW to get the license to Stranger Things, and then it'll happen.
Like, I'm really looking forward to this day that one day Stranger
I know
Things.
That somebody is publishing a Stranger Things comic.
There is. They're doing a pre-season 3 Stranger Things comic. Or it's a book or a comic, I'm not sure, but a thing is coming out that will pre-story the upcoming season.
So Archie is, of course, crossed over with the Predator. He's gone to hell. Jughead's become a werewolf. There was a Vampironica story for a while. There's been a lot of weird.
Was there for
Cthulhu was there. Like Sabrina married Cthulhu. Right now, did you know that Archie is dating Sabrina in the comics? And
no.
They are about to change the title of like Archie's main comic, which is over like Archie.
Yeah.
It's now going to be Archie and Sabrina.
Cool.
So get excited for that.
I'm excited for that. But I'm sad though because those storylines will never come to television.
They will never come to television
because Netflix and
also
CW.
I don't want them to come to television because I've seen the Archie that exists in the Riverdale universe, and I don't want him anywhere near Sabrina. She is too pure for him.
I don't know.
He's a bad man who sleeps with his
up,
teacher.
Have you been keeping up with?
No, I have not been keeping up with Riverdale. It got way too weird.
Let's see, he already slept with his teacher. That was like the first episode.
Yes.
That was like the first episode. And then past that, like, he died. He got like a bear attack, like ripped his heart out and he died. And he came back all mean and grumpy.
I figure he's like a mutant at this point. Who knows?
And they're playing this weird D&D game where everybody's tripping their balls off some fucking fiddle faddle or some shit. It's a very weird show.
Right. So the Archie universe in the comics is almost kind of reflecting the weirdness that we're seeing in Riverdale. Like I said, he's done all these other crossovers in the past. In fact, to add to those crossovers, Betty and Veronica are going to be doing a crossover comic with Red Sonja and Vampirella. And that is literally the name of it, is Red Sonja and Vampirella meet Betty and Veronica.
Cool.
How weird? Like, these are like...
I'm just kind of like, are they going to do something or just having like a spa day? Because I kind of want them to just have a spa day.
You want like absolutely nothing.
I want nothing to happen. I just want like all four of them just chill the fuck out.
They're just like go out and like have girl gossip.
Yeah, just like they get their nails
Red
done.
Sonja's like, it's like, I killed bears. And like Vampirella.
And they get her a new, like they go shopping, get her a new outfit that's not, chainmail bra.
Right.
Yeah, they get her a real one that supports
they get
correctly.
Vampirella an outfit that is more than 2 strings.
Yes.
Right.
Or maybe just a layer on top of the 2 strings.
A layer on top of the 2 strings. I think that would be an amazing comic, to be honest. Just something that, like, you're setting it up to be this weird epic adventure, and it's just like them, like, going to the sauna.
Yeah.
And it's just like 20 pages of that.
Yeah, no, I
would love when
this.
I say them going to the sauna, I mean like nothing sexual. I don't want anything overly sexual. I don't want it to be like, oh, look how like the towels like go around. No, I want it to be like the most mundane.
You don't want to bat dick this.
Right. Like I want it to be the most mundane comic in the world where they're just all like hanging around like talking about boys.
Yeah, no, that's cool. I'm cool with that. Like this is
probably
literally
not
what I want.
That is probably not what we're
super
going to
not
get.
what we're going to get though.
Yeah. Let's see.
I don't think our version would sell very well.
That is very true. Maybe it's for a very specific audience, but there's probably a fetish for that. Moving on from RG Comics, let's go ahead and jump over to DC. For a long time, not in recent years, but in the past, it was a big deal to do big zombie crossover events. Zombies are a genre that have thankfully kind of died out.
Weirdly, unlike zombies.
Weirdly, unlike zombies. I mean,
The
Walking Dead still still
The Walking
going.
Dead is determined to fucking just keep going.
You know what? That TV show has gotten so much better now that nobody cares about it. But
Let's just leave it alone, and like maybe one day we'll come back and go back through time and enjoy it. Plus the 3 movies that they're making for some fucking unknown reason, because they feel like wasting money. But no, we had like back in the day we had the Marvel Zombies.
Yeah.
And that wasn't just a one-time thing. That was like an ongoing series for like a year, and then like they took a year off and like made another series, a sequel to it. And like Alex Ross, one of the best fucking painters in all of comic books, was doing all the cover work.
Yeah, he's the one that did Kingdom Come. He did Marvel's the book.
He does paintings.
He's by far one of the most beautiful.
Instead of just like drawing like lines and everything, all this work is actual paintings.
Most of his comics are in watercolor. That's how he does it.
Yeah, and the fact that he did all the covers to like Marvel Zombies is fucking amazing. And then they also had like they had a Deadpool Marvel Zombies crossover thing where he has to go kill everybody because they're zombies.
Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, so zombies have been out of fashion for a while, and we've kind of been
I'm looking for a good 10 years of being a zombie-free nation.
Well, we're not getting 10 years. We are going to get a fun mini-series from DC Comics. It's going to be about Batman against zombies. It's going to be kind of in the same vein as like the Marvel Zombies thing. It's going to be called, get this, are you ready for it? I'm excited about this name.
You're going to tell me something stupid, aren't you?
Deceased is the name of this comic. And it's going to be about a Darkseid unleashes a techno-organic virus. By the way, I didn't know that they could use that. I thought that was like a Marvel-only kind of item. Because that's what the infection that Cable has, the TO virus. Anyways, Darkseid unleashes this techno-organic virus. It takes over almost the entire DC universe, and Batman has to stop them.
I'm still mad about the deceased thing. Like it's
the title alone has just made you angry.
It's made me mad. I don't care for this. I don't care for this type of humor.
So I'm kind of.
It's your humor. You love that. Like you read that. Like whenever I was reading the news, I saw the title and it took me like a second to go, oh, that's what you did. Oh, fuck you.
Now, of course,
and
this
like
is not.
I haven't been happy about learning about it since.
This is obviously not the main DC continuity. This is kind of an Elseworld thing. This is really just people over at DC having fun and being like, hey, do you think if you just put like Batman up against the DC universe as zombies, like he could survive? And come on, guys, we as nerds always have that discussion of like, can Batman honestly take down anything? Like,
that's all right. So like immediately you're like, okay, so let's say Superman, Wonder Woman, Green Lantern, the Flash, all zombies. Guess what? Their powers don't fucking exist because they're fucking zombies. You know, easy they are to kill. You shoot them in the fucking head. Which is actually very hard for Batman because he doesn't kill people. A lot of air quotes on that shit.
Does that apply to zombies?
I mean, zombies were once people
because
too.
If you read, there's a lot of fascinating articles about. This was kind of during the prime of when we were getting so many zombie movies and television shows and all that. Is that there was a lot of theories that people were kind of proposing that one of the reasons that we do enjoy a good zombie film is it does give us the kind of primal like love for like killing another human being. You know,
it's the true fight or flight response to a dangerous situation.
Right. You're not killing a sentient human being, but that thing looks a lot like your boss, and you could just like shoot him in the head.
Your boss.
Yeah, right. And you don't have to feel guilty about it because it's not your boss.
But it's like extra drooly.
Right. Like you can have some fun with it.
You know, and that's something that's one of the reasons why we do love zombies is the idea of killing people. Like deep down, like we are very, very calm, hairless monkeys. We're like one angry day away from just everybody killing everybody, okay? That's what society's like always on the brink of destruction, and people don't really think about that.
We have a doomsday clock for a reason.
It's not the doomsday clock that's literally like just somebody getting dumb and pushing a button. No, like society imagine the comic, like the one bad day as a comic, but like as a society, everybody having one bad day, literally half the humanity will be dead because everybody just got mad and said fuck you and started killing everybody. That's how close we are. Fucking hairless monkeys, and we are dumb. And zombies are fun to kill because
they're a catharsis.
Yeah, it's catharsis. We can actually kill them because they're not. That's not really my grandma anymore. I can totally not kill my not grandma. Like that was a double negative. That didn't make any sense. But yes.
So I guess the bigger question is like, I honestly am. I don't know if I would pick the single issues of this, but I am curious to see like how Batman would try and take down like a DC universe.
It's an interesting idea. I'm not buying it.
Comics don't always have to be serious, man. Sometimes
I know
you can
that,
just have
but
fun.
I know, but like I don't want another fucking Batman saves the day because he's fucking Batman story.
They did say that one of the things they wanted to do was make something that was more horrific than the Injustice series.
Oof, that starts horribly.
Right? Like that was
the beginning of the Injustice. If people don't remember, we talked about it quite a bit. Starts with Superman ripping out Lois Lane's heart.
Yes.
Because he thought she was it Darkseid and needed to kill her because the Joker used was it the gas from Scarecrow to fuck him up.
Yep.
And he took pregnant Lois Lane into space and ripped her fucking heart out.
Yep.
And then went batshit crazy and enslaved humanity.
Yeah, that's how Injustice starts, and they want to make something darker than that for this.
I'm like, okay, see, if you'd started with that and said, oh, and also there's zombies.
Right.
I'm like, oh, you kind of lost me there at the end, but I was super on board with the beginning. See, you lost me at the beginning, but the end part, I'm like, oh, wait, darker than Injustice?
Just reeling you back in slowly. Good job, DC. All right, so the last thing...
Title's still dumb.
The last thing... I love it. I know, it's a good
It's a bad dad joke. Bad dad joke.
So the last thing we have for comics this week, I'm curious what your opinion on this is. So we're going to be getting a new Blade Runner comic. And when I say Blade Runner comic, I'm going to talk specifically about the original Blade Runner movie, the one that is supposed to be set in the year 2019. It's going to be launching this summer from Titan Comics. It's going to be set during the exact time frame of the original Blade Runner movie, but it's going to be about mostly new characters and situations that are happening during that time.
I mean, honestly, if you're looking at the story of Blade Runner, it's a very, very it's small story.
It is.
The number of people involved in it, that action and everything, it's not encompassing like the whole city. It's not a world event. This is literally just going after
it's
like
one
10
people involved.
Yeah, it's like you're going after one robot.
Yeah.
Well, a robot going after another robot, if you want to get technical.
I mean, this is going to get deep, and let's not start spoiling Blade Runner for people.
It's been like 30 years. I think I can spoil it.
Hey, people are always coming around to Blade Runner. All right,
yeah, they made a sequel to it like 30 years later. Like I think I'm allowed to spoil a little bit of the original.
So you are right though. Like the original Blade Runner story doesn't involve many people. And yet that universe really draws us in. Like that opening shot, you're just like...
It does a very good job of world building, and that's one of the things I appreciate about it.
Yes, the way that John Wick does, right?
Yeah, no, and yet you understand so much of the universe just through the actions. And one of the things I actually learned recently was Edward James Olmos, you know him, he was one of the detectives in the opening, or the story of the original Blade Runner. He's the one that actually came up with city speak. That's not in the book. That was something that he brought up while they were making the movie, about this idea of mixing like Spanish, English, and Japanese, and like Cantonese, and mixing all these
street speak.
Yes, city speak.
Yeah.
He created that.
That's
because
amazing.
he's like if we haven't mixing all these cultures, we would just all use we would use these words interchangeably.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, that totally makes sense. We would do that. And I was like,
That's
oh,
amazing.
Cool. Edward James Olmos, you're fucking amazing. Like,
wow,
more so amazing.
Some hot facts on us today, man. I love it.
But as like for a comic in this universe, if it can build out well, because all right, so we had the original film, which is, no matter which version of it, probably gonna be fucking amazing, because even though there's been edited to death and back, the most recent film, fucking amazing, great continuation, follows the same a similar story later on. Like it's the fallout of that, but like 30 years later. It's super interesting story, and I mean, I'm looking forward to the director's next film because it's fucking Dune.
Right.
He's going from Blade Runner. He's like, I'm gonna make a sequel to Blade Runner. And we're like, cool. And we're like, oh shit, this is a really good movie. He's like, I'm gonna do Dune now. We're like, oh motherfucker, you got me.
I'll get into the cast of Dune at some point.
At some point, we actually have to, like, whenever we're getting close to actually film date.
Yeah.
Because the movie's coming out in like a year and a half. Yeah. They haven't even started filming it yet. They just keep announcing cast members.
Yeah.
We'll talk about the cast.
How do you feel about
Dune.
a comic that is set in this universe, though?
Yes.
Do you feel like it's intruding on like the original works, or is this just like get in there?
No, like I want more of this.
Yeah.
I want more of that universe, and it hasn't been fully explored. A lot of it's become down to rights issues and who had access to what, and all it's been kind of giant corporations have now accumulated all the smaller corporations where it'd be like, oh, we have all of the rights to this.
Right.
So we can do the thing. And as long as it's treated with respect to the universe and care, then I'll be happy. I look at it as similar to the extended Star Wars universe. This is something that doesn't necessarily have to be listed as canon, but it will expand upon the lore and the knowledge and characters of that universe.
Okay. I can appreciate that. And I feel the exact same way about it. All right, that's everything we have for comic book news this week. We're going to take a small break. When we come back, we'll be going into level 2 video game news.
There you go. I can save this real quick. Hey, guess what we didn't do this week?
What?
Anything about episode 300. We have 2 episodes.
I'm working on things, man.
No, like you and I didn't sit down and talk about it at all. We kind of did. Like you were like playing a game one day, and I was like, we gotta talk about this Patreon shit, and that was like the extent of the conversation.
And then I spent 6 days with the flu.
Yeah.
So really, this was not a conducive time to try and ask me what we're.
I think what you should have done was spent 6 days having crazy fever dreams, coming up with a crazy ridiculous plan, and then we have a crazy ridiculous plan. Because I mean, if I need to get sick to do this, I'm looking at this like Darren Aronofsky writing Mother, where he's like, I got really sick with the flu and in a fever dream state wrote an entire script.
Yes,
that's what we have to do for 300. We have to get like fever dream.
I just fever dream.
Pile out some fucking crazy story and then make the thing.
All right.
Don't encourage the DCs. Don't fucking encourage.
It's a good name, man. It's such a good name.
It's so bad, dad joke. It's so bad.
All right. I think I'm ready.
It's not an Elseworld. It's a deceased world.
It's a deceased world. Well played. Well played, sir. I appreciate it.
That's probably what they're going to put on the fucking cover for it. I can feel it. Like, I can feel it in my bones.
You could feel it in your crotch right now.
I can feel it in my crotchal bones.
All right, let's talk about some games.
All right, I'm going to click some shit. Not the one I was trying to move. Thank you. Hey, video games. Yeah, I got to figure out how to make scenes and things happen.
Yeah.
When I press a button.
Yeah.
Like maybe sparkly effects and.
Are you talking about the podcast or your relationships?
I'm talking about the Streamlabs.
Got it.
Archer, nobody wants your help right now. Quit putting your face on things.
That's what he does.
No one wants your gross, oily face. Dude, you need a face bath. His face is really oily. Like, we need to give him a bath.
He's a cat.
Yeah, he shouldn't be this oily. He's an oily little fucker.
He's a house panther. That's what they do.
He's like
yeah,
puberty as a cat. It's just an oily, disgusting mess.
Well, he is a teenager now.
He is an oily, disgusting mess. Like that is. He's not a cat. He's an oily, disgusting mess. Like Captain Planet would show up in here and be like, "Get the fuck rid of that. That's just not good. Like that. We shouldn't have that. That is literally polluting the environment."
All right, let's go.
Level 2 video game news.
Hey, adventurers! Welcome back to the show. It's a kind of melancholy way that we're going to be opening up video game news this week. Not talking about a loss in the sense of somebody in the industry dying, but a loss in the sense that somebody is leaving their position within a company. So whether or not you've been a giant fan of Nintendo for the last 15 years, it's hard to deny the influence that Reggie Fils-Aimé has had for Nintendo of America. He has been the face of Nintendo of America for 15 years. He's been the person that when they were still attending E3 would step out and do their presentations.
Oh, no, he still, I mean, even on the Nintendo Direct stuff, still comes out. I remember even because we watched this last E3 and they did the not E3 special of Nintendo Direct, and he was there on stage. And I mean, he had like kind of the most iconic coming out to a audience. By the way, I'm the president of Nintendo, and basically eat my goddamn dick, because is kind of what he said. Yeah. And like, I mean, it's not. He said it much more politely.
That is what he does.
But that's what he kind of said.
He's really good at like saying how good they are. But he's also really good at eating crow. Like, he was a person that, was there through these golden years of the Wii. And when the Wii U was struggling, he was supportive of it, but he was also able to kind of look back and reflect and say, look, difficult decisions were made, bad decisions were made within the company. Now we're going to move forward, right?
Yeah. And he's just the president of Nintendo of America.
Yes.
He is not the one making the decisions of what console was actually coming out. That is Nintendo Japan. Yep. Those are the ones being like, we're making a thing. And he has to go like, well, we've got this entire English-speaking part of the world I have to fucking convince to buy this thing.
Yeah, and I mean, but he is a person that the people over in Japan thoroughly trust. So in the history of Nintendo, or the history of like video games in general, if you go back and learn about companies like Sega and Nintendo, way back in the day, when they had an American division, they tended not to really trust the word of the American division. I'm talking about like in the early NES days and the early like Genesis days. Yeah. The Japanese side of it always felt they were the ones in the know, and they're the ones that would kind of bring the company forward into America. And the head of operations in America was just a figurehead. And that's something that slowly over time got broken down.
Yeah, no, it really wasn't. Like, I personally feel that the wall got shattered whenever Microsoft came out and said, when Bill Gates said, this is our gaming console. Right. And it wasn't until that point that the West could put up a fight against what Japan was creating game-wise or console-wise.
But when it comes to things like company directors, in terms of being either in Japan or in the U.S., the kind of the breakout star for America, man, I feel like such a bad history nerd right now because I can't remember his name. He was the head of Sega Genesis during the division, right before the Sega Scream era. He was the one who stepped in and helped with all that.
Dude, you're the one that reads these books. I
know. I've like read like 20 books on the history of Sega, and I'm still like, I got a head cold. I'm sorry. But basically, it was this idea that you had an American step in as a president and say, we're no longer kind of just taking orders from Japan. We're telling them what the general public needs, and now they're responding in kind and saying, yeah, let's build something that's faster, smarter, better. See,
that's the thing is, even though we don't know the person's name because you can't remember, that's something I didn't know. Yes. Because like, and for me, it was Bill Gates saying Microsoft's entering the console market, and I didn't think about Sega of America doing anything like that or. Until Reggie, I definitely remember him coming out and being like, "Hey, by the way, my name's Reggie. I am here to play games and kick ass."
Yeah, is what he came out with or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, what I'm trying to say about Reggie Fils-Aimé is that when he came out as the president of Nintendo of America, he brought with him not only a presence on stage, but he also very much tapped into all of the fan base of Nintendo and said, hey, I'm one of y'all, and Nintendo across the board globally will listen to me and to what y'all want. You need to let me know what you desire, what you crave, what you want to be on the next system. What things do you as fans want? I will communicate that, and we will try our hardest to make that happen. And he delivered on a lot of those promises.
2 out of 3. I'm counting the Wii U as just a failure in general, but it did release a bunch of games that people did want on there.
Oh, no, yeah. History will remember that console as a failure. I'm sorry.
It will, but there were some great things that did come out on it that have since been changed over.
We're not even counting the handheld market.
That's like
3DS in its prime. The DS in its prime. I mean, these are all things that Reggie was a part of, but he always came on stage as the director of Nintendo, less like somebody who is a CEO collecting a paycheck and more like somebody that you could sit down and have a drink with. And I think that's one of the things that...
Yeah, he felt more like a marketing guy. Like he was more the hype man than the president. Like you kind of stop me like, wait, you're also making the decisions? This is weird. You seem like the guy that just tells us what the guy that made the decisions does.
Yeah. And so it was announced this week that Reggie Fils-Aimé is going to be stepping down from his position as the American director of Nintendo of America. And so it was kind of a big sad moment for everybody because we were like, oh, like you're the president of Nintendo of America. Like you've been our like godfather for so long. Like, what are you going to do? And of course, he had a very heartfelt message.
Like, motherfucker, I made a lot of money. I'm going to do nothing.
Well, I mean, he did talk a lot about how, he's got to spend time with family. He's got his kids that he wants to spend more, his wife he wants to spend more time with. So obviously you can't say like, dude, don't go spend time with your family, obviously. He sent out this big heartfelt message just saying thank you to everybody about how like being a part of the Nintendo family was so important to him. And then as he starts to wrap up, he says, I want you to treat the person who's coming into my position with the same warm, loving respect that you gave me when I walked out on stage that first time. And he said, I believe that it wraps up with something along the lines of, and with a name like his, you know that the Mushroom Kingdom's in the right hands, and the next president of Nintendo of America is going to be a gentleman by the name of Doug Bowser.
Oh, fuck you. All right, no, like that's awesome. I had like a conspiracy theory in my head whenever I saw that he was going to be stepping down, basically retiring. He's like, I don't really plan on doing anything after this. I made my money. Like, I want to go do other things now. Literally nothing. I want to go spend time with my family and retire. I had this feeling that was like, all right, this is the last time we see him. Like, because of all the rumors that have been circulating about what's possibly going to happen at this year's E3, I was expecting him to go on stage one last time. But not on Nintendo stage. I expected him to show up on Microsoft stage. But now that I feel like he really is handing off the baton, like the torch is being passed. I kind of feel like the first time we actually get to meet Mr. Bowser, which is really fucking weird to say that every time for a while. Whenever you see Bowser show up, I feel like that might be his first appearance, might be on Microsoft stage.
You think so? They do some kind of crossover between
I think based on the rumors that are going on right now with Xbox Live coming over to the Switch and possibly Game Pass coming along with it, I felt that was the great sign-off for him being like, by the way, Nintendo's expanding. We're already great friends. Let's, keep the... Reggie was always amazing about the gaming community. Like, it wasn't just Nintendo versus everybody else, which is what growing up was what we knew. We knew it was Sega versus
it was
Nintendo,
a very different,
and then Sony versus everybody, and then even when the original Xbox came out, it was Microsoft and Sony versus everybody.
Reggie was one of the ones that showed the non-console wars happening. When Microsoft would launch a new system, he would get that tweet, "Congratulations on your console launch."
And that was that was the change in the gaming place. I mean, even to this last year, 2018, we had I think it was it Fortnite commercials that were coming out for the Xbox and the Switch, and it was and it just said "game together."
Yep.
And it was a commercial for both systems playing together. Both of them got the same amount of airtime. You had to look at Roger Rabbit. You can't say Disney or the
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers could have they had to have equal screen time.
Yep.
So both Microsoft and Nintendo had equal screen time on this commercial saying it's fun to play together.
Yeah.
And that whole marketing campaign is done fucking great for both of them. And to the detriment of the people who aren't wanting to play friends.
People are adopting that theory online. And yes, there are still people who are kind of rampant, nasty fanboys. But a lot of gamers online are kind of coming together and saying, no, we should be able to play together. We shouldn't be restricted by the console that we're doing.
Yeah,
and Reggie was one of those people that always did firmly believe that. He was like, we are at our core all gamers.
Yeah, we just want to play. We want to play games that we enjoy, games that we love, that we can share with our friends, that we can make memories in. These worlds that we can have. We can create a world and a story, and then convey it to someone else, and they gain knowledge and experience from that, and can take that on.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I was hoping that he'd come out one last time to say, hey, by the way, we're commingling even further. But I kind of feel like it might be the good batons for Bowser. Bowser might just come out and be like, hey, by the way, we're doing some shit. And it feels like that would be exactly where Reggie's shoes should go.
Yeah.
Is coming out and saying, we need to break down these walls, that it's play the games that you like on the thing that you like. But as long as you're always playing with your friends, no matter where you're at.
Yeah.
And that, to me,
it's a very
is
strong and important message right now, I think, in the world of gaming. Brooklyn actually said in chat that he had a chance to meet Doug Bowser. Says that he's a pretty awesome dude. Everything that I've heard about Doug Bowser has been nothing but good things, like just glowing stuff. It's just amazing.
I just don't know how he got the job with that name.
Well, I mean,
Bowser's in charge of Nintendo. This seems like a bad idea.
Nintendo of America, which is almost fitting for our current political climate. Okay.
You have a very valid point.
Yes. Okay. So let's move on to something a little bit more upsetting than Reggie stepping down. And that is the sorry, I'm still sick. I'm trying to compose myself here. The Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, is going to be hosting a public workshop soon about loot boxes. They have not said what it's going to be about specifically or whether they're going to be conducting a formal investigation, but basically they're going to be getting together as the FTC and saying, hey, we should probably talk about this loot box thing and see if it's exploitation, if it's like gambling. This is
important because this is the Federal Trade Commission,
yeah,
which is not the Gaming Commission, which is more of a state-based organization.
Mm-hmm.
This is the federal government coming in, or the United States federal government coming in saying, like, we need to start taking a look at these things. That's what's going on. Right. And that will disseminate into other entities, other people with letters in their names.
Yes.
And they will be enforcing some of the things that we're going to start talking about. And I do believe this is the beginning of the end of loot boxes, at least in America. Okay. Like we've said it before when Hawaii said no more like loot boxes.
Do you think that it is the beginning of the end of loot boxes completely, or is this the beginning of actual regulation of them? That is two different things. So what you want and what the
companies want is regulation,
right?
And they have the money to influence the United States government to where they can get that level. Right. What I want is the deconstruction of loot boxes. Sure. I want a true, you see the thing, you buy the thing. No,
you just want a microtransaction store.
I just want a microtransaction store. If you're going to fucking force microtransactions into a game because you feel that $60 is not enough for your product, I don't give a fuck. Honestly, let me pay $80 for a fucking game.
Right.
Would not have any of this shit. Give me all of it. I will give you $20 more.
Right.
Is it that fucking hard to figure out? Right. Are we that stagnant of a society? We're like, $80 is too much. Fucking games were $120 when I was a child.
I know that I paid at least $80 to $90 for Street Fighter 2 on my Sega Genesis, and that's in Sega Genesis times.
Yeah, no, Nintendo
think about
and
the
Genesis,
inflation for that.
Yeah, no, you were paying basically $200 more or $200 plus for a game back then.
Yeah, I think.
And I'm mad that I want to play 80 now. I want to pay 80 just so I don't have to deal with microtransactions.
Yeah,
and the fact that loot boxes, this is loot boxes need to be defined as gambling, and I think that maybe not this administration, but I feel like the FTC isn't really giving a shit about who the fuck is in the administration right now. Yeah. They're more like, what the fuck ever, we just do our goddamn jobs. And I think that they're going to stick with their jobs to find out, is this gambling, and is it going after children? And once they figure out, yes, this is gambling, and yes, it's going after children, we might see some damn changes.
Jesus Christ. Brooklyn said that he paid $100 for WrestleMania 2000 on a Nintendo 64. You were robbed, sir.
I mean, I know you like fighting games, but that was bad.
SmackDown on PlayStation, much better. Much better title. Yeah, I mean, this is the FTC stepping in for this is the first warning shot that either the industry has to change, or it's going to get regulated by government. So
I have no problem with loot boxes as long if they cost zero money. If you just get random items in a game.
I don't want to make an extreme example here, but sometimes you have to time to Hitler. And
this is the internet, so we got like 8 minutes and then Hitler.
Look up what time to Hitler means if you're not familiar with the term. This is the exact thing that happened with the ESRB back in the day. This became
regulate yourself, or we'll regulate this for you.
That's exactly what it was, is that games were unregulated, and the violence in Mortal Kombat helped spur this thing. But there were several other factors, and by the way, there was a lot of money changing hands. No, I'm not going to get into this. That is an entire me talking about this for 2 hours.
You're going to get into conspiracy theory.
No, I'm not going to talk about conspiracy theory. I have read the history books on how the ESRB was established, and there was a lot of money that did change hands, and it was very slimy. But that being said, at the end of the day, what happened with the ESRB is that people stepped up into the government and said, "Look, we need to regulate the violence that is happening within video games because our kids are seeing shit they shouldn't be seeing."
Yeah, no, there were the late 80s, early 90s was just full of a bunch of senators who had it out for video games.
Right. And so they were given this choice, either you regulate yourself or we will regulate you. And what we are seeing with the FTC talking about loot boxes right now is exactly that. The FTC is going to have this little meeting and they're going to say, look, here's the options. We will either say no more fucking loot boxes because that's just gambling, or you can learn to fucking regulate this shit in your game in a way that is fair for the gamers and not an abusive system.
China has already helped with that because most games at this point are international games.
Yeah.
And China said you have to give everybody the exact percentage chance of every single drop that will happen from an item.
So for those of you that are not familiar with this, there's a lot of games that mobile games that exist that are kind of called they're called gacha games, I believe is the term. Sorry, it's been a while.
I think gacha games.
Yeah, and the idea of it is that you get a certain amount of free characters when you play the game, and as you play it, you can get tokens, tickets, in-game currency that you can exchange to get a random chance to get other characters. So say you're playing Final Fantasy, Brave, whatever the fuck it's called. You get so many characters for free, and then the banner this week is you can roll for a random chance to get Cloud. And so
people want that because they remember that character being good for some reason.
Right. And so you can either buy 1 ticket to get Cloud for like $1 or buy 10 tickets to get Cloud for $10, but if you buy 10, you have a higher percentage chance to get it,
because
right?
if the character's drop rate is 1 out of 50, you're
right. But they say we will bump it, instead of bumping it from 1 to 10, we'll bump it from 1 to 30.
Yeah.
Right, if you buy the 10. So the reason I'm going this really weird roundabout is that for a long time we never knew what the metrics behind these things were until China finally stepped in and said, if you're going to have a form of gambling that will exist, that will say there's a percentage chance to draw something, then you must always tell the player the odds so that they know intelligently what they are rolling for.
Yeah.
They want to have the information there, right?
Yeah, and that's something that that should have been a given. Honestly, in my opinion, that's a given. You should have already had that in place the moment you started putting in anything that is basically a fucking one-armed bandit. You should have given me the odds to begin with.
Yeah,
and that's just how gambling works. And to me, it's still so predatory towards children, and even with Fortnite kind of getting kicked in the dick recently, Apex Legends isn't any better. It's just, I mean, it's still the same bullshit. And honestly, I think that we are raising a generation of children that don't understand what this means.
Right.
That the idea of literally throwing money at a screen to get the thing that you want, but having no physical appreciation for it is going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Recently, there was a study coming out how things like Instacart or DoorDash or anything that delivers you food separates you from the idea of buying food and having to go and see food and smell it and discover what you want to make with those things. That it separates the idea from food to creation so you don't have any relationship to the earth or what your meal actually came from.
Right.
And how that is detrimental to us as a society and also psychologically as to a person. And to me, it's exactly what loot boxes are. They are detrimental psychologically to a person, especially at such a young age. They will have no understanding of many things because of the way this random number generator treated them as a child. And it's going to be really bad. And I don't think people are really seeing the repercussions of this just yet. They're not understanding what they will be long term.
Right. Well, the FCC is stepping in, so we'll know something here soon as they have their first workshops about this. But I guarantee you we're going to see some pretty strict regulations about loot boxes coming right around the corner. But we will talk about that when it happens. We have one more really
We can just look
thing.
forward to them.
Yeah, we have one more really quick thing to talk about in terms of video game news this week, and that is that Microsoft has been working with Paradox Interactive to bring open modding to Xbox One. So there are certain games that that Paradox Interactive currently makes. They make games like City Skylines, Pillars of Eternity, Surviving Mars. And Surviving Mars is probably the one we should probably be talking about. It's a simulator that takes place on Mars, obviously, with trying to, you know...
I mean, it'd be really weird if they didn't.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, if it's Surviving Mars and it's actually just, Bubblegum Candy Village, it'd be a very odd title.
You don't know. It could be hidden behind loot boxes.
But because of open modding, I could make Bubblegum Candy Village...
And that is the exact point that we're going with, is that mods are not something that we commonly see when it comes to modern consoles. Fallout has its own store based around it. There are sometimes microtransactions based around mods. But it
was a big deal when mods came to Skyrim and to Fallout.
Right.
Because consoles historically had not had mods involved.
Yes.
They had illegal mods added to them to make them play games that weren't meant to,
sure.
But the games themselves were always the game. Yeah. The idea of adding more things to the game was always more something that was PC centralized, and then Bethesda kind of said, well, we can implement these things, and then they did, and they found like, well, we actually can let people who create these make money off of them.
And then Bethesda said, we can also regulate that store, and everybody...
Well, they legally had to regulate that store,
yes,
because of things like... the John Cena nuke bomb in Fallout.
Yeah.
Where it would say, like, it would be like, John Cena! And then it would land and go, burr, burr, burr. It says his name and plays the music. They can't legally allow that in their store because it has to be regulated. They're overseeing the product at that point. Yeah. Whereas previously online, it was the put up whatever you want. We have blinders. We're not looking at this.
Mm-hmm. But it is interesting that Microsoft has really kind of hunkered down and started working on this concept of like, all right, so if you have a PC game and there's mod support for it, how can we then translate that one-to-one into an Xbox product? Mm-hmm. And this is only the first step. Like them working with Paradox Interactive and being like, how can we like mod like Surviving Mars and like take these mods from online that all of these people use and bring them into the console version. This really kind of harkens back to something that we've been talking about a lot on this show, where Microsoft is trying to bridge this gap between the world of PC and the world of console.
Yeah.
And I think that this seems like such a minimal news item right now, but I guarantee you this is going to be a seed that is going to blossom into something much, much bigger. I would say as soon as probably this E3 that's coming up.
Possibly this E3. I would maybe say 2 E3s from now, just to see how things go. But to kind of go into the point a bit more, I'm not a big fan of like the Skyrim universe. I think everything looks brown and it's annoying and not fun. Sure. But if you go online and look up some of the YouTube videos of the specific mod packs you can get and how gorgeous it makes the game and what the additional features it adds to it, and then go, oh, I can just add those on console. Fuck yes. I mean, it makes the game look and play very differently. Yes. It makes an older game like Skyrim or Fallout look even more gorgeous than it already did.
And more importantly, you can make dragons in Skyrim as they come down from the heavens and descend upon you to like burn you to death. Go, oh yeah!
Actually, no, legally you can't do that one either.
Not on the console, no.
No, not on console because
someday.
Because they had to regulate it. That basically, if it's in WWE, it's not allowed to be a mod on a console. Okay, sorry, dude. It was so much fun, but
yeah, I look forward to a lot more mod support coming to the Xbox. Xbox, Jesus Christ, my head cold. Yeah, this is just the beginning of something really greater that we're going to see probably in the next couple of years. So yeah, keep your eyes open for that. All right, that's everything we have for video game news this week. We're going to take a small break. When we come back, we'll be going into level 3 entertainment news.
I need to take the dog out real quick. I just need to I clicked stop. Oh,
You're still recording.
No, I clicked mute.
You're still recording it though.
Yeah, I clicked mute and not stop. Like.
Hi, everybody. Yes, I sound sick for a reason. I've been laid up with the flu for the last 6 days. You're lucky that we're doing it.
I'm literally going to take the dog out real quick. She needs to take a pee.
Yeah.
She was over by the door, like doing her I need a pee dance.
So no problem.
She needs to go. Ow.
Well, then you have to come back and hang out in the chat more. That's the rule, if that's what you're going to be doing. Oh, man. I really tried my hardest to like sound more coherent for the show, but this is like the first alcohol drink that I've had since I've been sick, so it's really just a matter of me suffering through this. I've had the one. This is not even me being drunk. It's just me being sick. It's pretty sad. Yes, Tony's taking the doggo for a walk because I'm now here to entertain you. This is the worst show you could ever strap in for. Oh, man. Well, thank you guys for coming in. We're only a couple episodes off from 300. I don't even know what to do at that point. We're trying so hard to come up with something really great for you. We are going to have a new show format. That is the one kind of spoiler I can give you, is that for those of you that are hanging out with us in Twitch chat, so typically in the past, the way that we've been doing things for the show is, obviously you guys listen to us. We have 3 sections, and within the 3 sections, I always try to hit at least 3 news items that we're going to be talking about. Now, if any of you guys follow pop culture news, you know that it's not always easy to find like 3 specific topics. So what I've been kind of leaning towards doing for the upcoming post 300 episodes is that we're still going to be breaking it down into like sections. But instead of doing our like prelude, comics, movies, blah, 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 we're going to go ahead and kind of condense all this stuff. And what I want to do is I want to encourage stronger conversations about fewer topics instead of forcing ourselves to hit a certain number of topics. So we'll have our beginning segment, which will be the prelude. We'll have our middle segment, which right now I'm calling the weekly raid. And it's going to be just a handful of topics across comics, video games, all that stuff that we can kind of dive into. And then we'll still have the epilogue. It'll still be our main topic for the show. But that way we're not beholden to a certain number of topics per section, basically. I want us to be able to have just a really great discourse, because some weeks we don't have a lot of great comic news. Some days there's not great video game news. It kind of waxes and wanes. That's kind of the idea that we're going with at this point, is just trying to have something where we can have a more meaningful dialogue about less topics, essentially. And also because you guys have been hanging out with us on Twitch, we want to be able to talk with y'all more. And so one of the ways to do that is to have fewer topics that y'all can chime in on and be an active part of the conversation while we're recording the podcast, instead of just kind of passive players watching us right now. Archer was licking his butt in your seat while you were gone.
I'm going to let you in on a secret. Whenever we're not recording the show, I'm licking my butt in this chair.
Oh, well,
And that's how I do.
All right.
You got Aaron sick, too.
I know. I am a bad boyfriend, let me tell you.
I mean, whenever we found out you were sick, we should have just burned you with fire, so it's kind of our fault. I was going to ask if you wanted anything to drink, but you were like balls deep in a conversation about stuff.
To entertain people while you were out walking your fucking dog.
It's -5? That's not a number. It's literally not. It's not a number. 0 is the lowest you can go. You went past the point of numbers. It's not how. That's not how. Not that's not.
Wherever
how work.
wherever Jack is, it's -5 degrees.
Under 10 degrees, you don't really feel a difference. Well, like until you reach like -40, and then like you really feel that.
These are not numbers that we should reach.
Nobody should do that.
But then again, we regularly reach over like 110, so
That's true.
and the rest of the world thinks we're crazy. We're like, it's fine. It's just a warm heat.
Do you live in like freaking Alaska or something? Like purify. So yeah, you should just burn me at the stake at this point. Good Lord. By the way, JD, what's up? It's been a hot minute, my friend.
Yeah, where the fuck you been?
Right?
I saw you just watched FP the sequel. I need to know how it is.
I need to watch the original because I've heard that it's quite the classic.
It is a work.
It's a movie.
Someone filmed that, yes. Things were put onto film for posterity, and Not sure if it should have been.
Title of your sex tape?
Yes, exact. But it has to have the exact connotation.
Yes, it has
exact
to have
like the exact. Yeah, everything said that exact way.
Minnesota, isn't that like where Fargo is?
Yes.
I don't know. I haven't seen Fargo, so.
I thought you watched Fargo.
No, I have not. It's on my to-do list.
Yeah. Cool. Yes.
Yes.
It's like
I've seen the movie.
it's like next to Montana.
Yes.
There's a lot of those M states that way the fuck up there.
All I know about Montana is that's where cowboys hang out.
Yes, but not the Dallas Cowboys.
No, they are not.
Because they're in Texas.
Yes.
We're literally the other side of the country. I don't understand how that one happens, but
They said the movie is good with 5 drinks or more. Jesus Christ. Isn't it a movie about DDR from what I saw the cover of it?
So, all right, imagine a post-apocalyptic world full of white trash Detroit. You know, like 8 Mile white trash Detroit, like
right.
that, but like post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
And DDR. Take that for what it is.
And that's how they save the world.
Well, that's just the plot line, I guess. It's
okay. This is just a weird fucking movie. All right, we have things to talk about that are not this weird movie.
You'll be in Dallas, Howard, this Friday?
Oh, he'll be in Dallas this Friday, but he's not going to come down to Austin to visit us because he's a bastard.
It is like 4 hours away.
It doesn't matter.
Where he lives, that's like 2 states. That's not.
I heard that's like 3 blocks in New York traffic.
No. No.
All right, switch us over and let's get to the next segment.
All right, let me click some shit. It's just slightly smaller than Maine.
New York is smaller than Maine?
Sure, I don't know. I'm just making shit up. I'm just doing it to argue now.
It takes 11 hours to drive from the top to the bottom of New York, not including Long Island.
And then Maine's like 75 hours across. It's so big. Especially if you take the
It's one of the smallest states.
it's the whole it's the whole pig's snout up there at the top. It's the whole bit. There's the whole bit. And New York's smaller down over here.
Tell the internet about you seasoning a steak.
Less geography, more talk about the news.
I am very good at geography. You got a bunch of tiny little fuckers up here, over here, and Texas. And
you don't understand how steaks
shit.
or geography work. We understand this.
I made that steak was actually really good.
You also said you regretted not salting it 2 days ago.
Yeah, I needed to salt it and
You
pepper
don't
2 days ago.
salt a steak 2 days in advance. Literally,
Yes,
it
you do.
absorbs all the moisture out of it.
That's what I wanted.
It becomes jerky. You're literally making jerky.
Motherfucker, I like jerky.
God damn it. Just move on with the news.
I also don't brine my steak. That's not a thing that I do. I think
we don't brine our steak either. We marinate it.
You're brining it, dude.
No, it's a completely different process. Brining is salt water.
And do you put salt in the water?
No.
You don't put any salts in that?
No. There's no water involved in how we marinate our steaks.
Okay, so what is in the marinade of the steak?
All right, we use soy sauce.
Okay, so salt.
Worcestershire sauce.
Salt.
Oh my God, really? We're going to fucking go down that road.
They're both incredibly salty.
Well, then I will never make you a steak again.
No, I'm just saying that we
Never
just...
make you a steak. Make your own damn steak. Salt it 2 days early.
I feel assaulted by this.
Do we want beer from Iowa? Does Iowa even make good beer?
Does Iowa even allowed to have beer?
I have no idea.
I feel like Iowa is permanently underage.
Why is Tony's palate a dumpster fire? Is the comment of the day. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on.
I'm sorry. That salt and pepper is all you need on a steak. That's all I'm saying.
Not 3 days in advance. You don't.
I wanted to do it on Friday so I could eat it on Saturday, and then I couldn't do that. And then I was like, well, Sunday's out of the question. And then today I was like, well, I didn't do it before I left for work because they came in to replace light bulbs. And then I had to deal with a Jenny who's like, there's somebody in the apartments. It's like, all right, well, I'm not going to do it now. So I could only do it like 20 minutes before I cook the thing. And
all right, we have people waiting for us to do the news. Let's go.
Level 3 entertainment news.
Hey, adventurers, welcome back to the show. If you are looking for a podcast to listen to that is not ours, I do have a recommendation for you, and I rarely have those. So earlier or later last year, there was a fantastic
Earlier, later last year. Yes, that is how time works.
Hold on. I was trying to figure out time for a second. Jesus Christ. There was a fantastic series that was released around October last year. Is that better?
Yeah, that works. That works. That's a more definitive time bubble.
That was called Eli Roth's History of Horror. And
yeah, he the show on
it was a seven-part documentary series on AMC.
Yeah, I've watched 4 or 5 of them so far.
Yes. And so obviously this was a documentary series where he sat down with a bunch of the horror greats, talked about, what inspired the genres.
My favorite part of it is really Eli Roth. Like the entire time is Rob Zombie's just sitting next to him. It's not like him just sitting down, like he talks to a lot of other directors and writers and producers about horror. But like whenever they're doing like any kind of round, there's more than one person. It's Eli Roth, Rob Zombie, and somebody else.
Okay.
For some reason, Rob Zombie had nothing to do this week and was just doing this show.
I feel like most weeks he doesn't have much to do.
He has a lot of weird movies to keep making, including the sequel to fucking House of a Thousand Corpses that I've been eagerly awaiting.
And it's not out yet, so keep waiting.
I know, because it's gonna be hard to impress us going after fucking Devil's Rejects.
If you enjoyed Eli Roth's History of Horror, Shudder is actually going to start releasing an extended edition as a podcast. So if you
I need this.
If you are a member of the buy-in Shudder service, as of this last week, you could have downloaded all the episodes. But if you're not, you can actually still go on iTunes, etc. Look up Eli Roth's History of Horror, and bi-weekly they're going to basically be releasing extended episodes of it. So basically, any interview that he had during the
you could tell they were talking to each other for every interview he had was probably 3 hours long.
Yeah.
and you only got 15 minutes of it.
Yeah, and so instead of just saying hey, we're just going to scrap all the footage or put it all into a Blu-ray or something, they're just going to release it as podcast and be like, here's the Rob Zombie episode. It's literally 3 hours of just Rob Zombie talking about horror.
Yeah, that's kind of what he did in the show.
We rarely recommend other podcasts on our show, but if
the only other one we recommend is Outlaws Outpost, which you have to record another episode soon.
Yep, on Thursday. I'm scheduling it right now. But yeah, other than that, if you're a giant horror fan, I don't know, this sounds right up my alley, because I rarely listen to podcasts because we have 2 at this point.
Yeah.
But this is one of those ones I was God damn it, I'm gonna listen to every fucking episode of this. Let's just fucking do it.
See, I know a lot of people that are into the real life murder podcast stuff, which ends up becoming a Netflix series or some shit.
Yeah.
And I can't fucking care. I like serial killers. It's cool. I just prefer if it's done artistically in a movie instead. That's just how I kind of feel about it. So I prefer the fictionalization of my murders.
Yeah.
Not the real world murders.
Yeah.
The real world, way more interesting. It's why Game of Thrones is so interesting, because it just was all taken from the real world and put into a fantasy environment.
Right.
And I get that. That's what makes great horror movies, but I'd rather just talk about the horror movies and not the things behind them. The historical aspects for me aren't quite as fun.
I can totally understand that. All right, so let's go and move on from podcasts and talk about something very near and dear to both of our hearts, and that is The Haunting of Hill House. There is a giant announcement this week. I wish there was more to talk about in terms of this, but we did find out what the concept behind the next Haunting of Hill House season is.
We knew that towards basically the first week that The Haunting of Hill House came out, that Netflix was like, we are going to be doing more with these fellas. And
that being the directors and writers.
Yes, and we're like, we're going to do more with these people. We like them. We want to do more. And if you'd watched the series, you immediately went well, you're not doing any more of this story.
There's a lot of people that wanted a fucking sequel to it, and I'm in the camp of no, the story is done.
Half the people are dead.
Doesn't matter. I'm just saying
and also that story wrapped itself up pretty nicely.
It's a done story.
Yeah, no, that story is done, and it's based off a book, and it's a done thing.
Yep.
We did the story, we modified a book to fit these needs, and we found out now what the next story will be from these people. It's now going to be more of an anthology thing where they're going to come out with a new horror miniseries, fingers crossed, once a year.
Yeah.
They're saying we're announcing it now, but we've already cast it.
We're not getting the next one until 2020, so
no, fuck Knuckles.
It is The Haunting of Bly Manor is going to be the name of it. It's going to be an adaptation of Henry James' Turn of the Screw. And the novella that it's based around is about a governess who is caring for 2 children at an estate that becomes convinced that the grounds that they're on is haunted. Now, this is a little bit tricky because I did a little bit of digging around after this announcement was made. Like I said, I always try to pull from multiple sources when I'm doing our news research.
Yeah, because multiple places came out and said, they're doing this. This is the title.
Right.
And everyone went, okay.
Here's the deal. Multiple adaptations of this particular story are going to be coming out around the same time. So
I don't like that.
Steven Spielberg's studio, Amblin Entertainment, is going to be releasing a horror film called The Turning on January 24th, 2020 that will be, from what we understand, showing up before The Haunting of Bly Manor.
Because more than likely they'll be releasing it during the October-November time period, like last one. So that's a good many months ahead of it.
Right. So this particular release of this same story that we, as far as we know, the Haunting of Bly Manor, is going to star Finn Wolfhard, which you know from Stranger Things, Brooklyn Prince, and Mackenzie Davis. So
do you like me some Mackenzie Davis?
That is a film that is going to be happening before the series is coming out.
Yes.
And there is also a second movie that is supposed to be coming out. It's called Turn of the Screw. And there's a lot of people that have worked on things like Under the Dome, CSI. It's supposed to be kind of a small screen adaptation of this specific story that is now...
Yeah, it's weird how everybody got the rights to that at the same time and decided to all do it.
Yeah, I wonder how that happened.
I'm interested in seeing the Amblin Entertainment one, just because Spielberg produced things are interesting. I'm stupidly waiting Halo series, which we do have more information about, by the way. It's not in the notes, but I kind of want to bring on that because it brought up. It's just I have to talk about.
You have to talk about Halo.
I have to talk about Halo at some point. Oh God! I hit my knee on a table. That's what I did. I appreciate most that the Netflix series is not continuing the same name structure.
Sure.
We're not getting the Screw or the Turning Screw or whatever. We're getting the haunting of, a place.
Bly Manor, which is literally the place that it...
Yeah, it's where the screw happens with the haunting and the turning and the blah and the... I don't know.
Maybe in your fan fiction, the screw happens like in a different place in my fan fiction.
I like to fuck ghosts. I identify with Ray in that edited out scene of Ghostbusters 1.
Yeah?
Yeah. Ghosts give a great head.
Mine is 13 Ghosts fan fiction, and it's
just really the girl that cuts herself. Is that what it is?
No, it's 13 Ghosts, man.
It's all 13 ghosts.
Everybody gets involved in my fan fiction.
Ooh, there's that one kid that's definitely underage. So maybe we don't talk about that.
Let's make it 12. No, you can make it 13 because that ghost is technically 2 ghosts.
No, there's a little underage boy with that shoots the arrows. He's not 2 ghosts. That is
shit. He is. All right,
yeah.
So
there's the older one who is a mentally handicapped man who was treated as a baby his entire
11
life.
and a half ghosts is my fan fiction.
I mean, I can keep going down this route of like how none of the ghosts are okay.
11 and a half ghosts are my fan fiction. But, I totally get what you're saying. It's like the Haunting of Bly House makes sense. And this kind of makes me excited because I think that once this new season is done, people will kind of jump on the bandwagon and be like, what's the next house that we're getting? Hopefully it's not Amityville, for the love of God.
That was actually what I was going to bring up before we went down your segue, was that Amityville Horror, the Amityville house, that whole thing has been done to death by so many studios all simultaneously, pretty much since the book fucking came out, to the point where the story was already bad to begin with, and it's just, The Conjuring was the only one that got it good. Honestly, I hate to say, even
The Conjuring doesn't even talk about it for more than 30 seconds.
And yeah, that's the reason why it was the only one that made it good because it's such.
And in fact, from what I understand, from what James Wan and all of them have talked about, is we don't want to talk about it
because it came out as truly fake.
Yeah,
everything in the Conjuring series are based on a true story, and the Amityville Horror came out a couple years after it was released, being this is super fake. None of this shit happened.
Yeah.
And that's why they have to get away from it's based on the Amityville Horror people. because all those stories were entirely fake. The entire Conjuring idea is entirely built on fake lies by this couple that pretended to be religious people to save people from ghosts.
Way, we are getting more of the
I'm
Haunted
happy
Hill
about
House.
this house. Yes, I still have the Conjuring
But it's going to be
bullshit.
really weird that there's going to be like 3 titles coming out in the same year that are based
You
around
know
the same
what?
concept.
They made like 3 movies about Steve Jobs' life in about a year, and one of them was good.
Yeah.
I watched all. Okay, I watched the opening to one because
Remember when like Ants and like A Bug's Life and all that happened? Like,
yeah,
at least one of them was good.
Yeah, then that's just something that happens with movies all overall. You had Armageddon and The Core happen like at the exact same time, which is like one's the asteroid coming to kill Earth and one's the core of the Earth coming to kill Earth.
One you don't want to miss
Same fucking
a thing.
story. Yeah, one had Steven Tyler singing a song.
All right, let's move on to our last bit of entertainment news for the week. And that's going to be about one of the people that is very near and dear to all of our hearts, and that is Neil Gaiman.
I do love some Neil Gaiman.
He does such amazing
Gaiman.
things.
I don't know.
Gaiman.
I'm always bad at like I always feel like I'm insulting by saying Gaiman, but that's actually
said,
how it is pronounced.
Right, we said Gaiman growing up.
Yeah, because we didn't be like, hey, gay man.
And I've also listened to like history books, and they're like, it's pronounced Gaiman. So Neil Gaiman,
also the way he pronounces
has
his own
been
name.
doing so many amazing things recently. Obviously, a lot of his shows are coming to TV. Right, we've got things like American Gods,
Season 2 of American Gods that he is the showrunner for.
We have Good Omens right around the corner with everybody in Good Omens. Like, it was announced, this isn't even in the show notes, it was announced that, like, Benedict Cumberbatch is joining Good Omens on top of fucking Martin Sheen, on top of fucking David Tennant, on top of everybody else who's going to be in this fucking
Yeah, no, the fact that, and also he's playing the devil.
He's playing the devil. Jesus, like, this is so good. Like,
and if you've read the book Good Omens, he's on like the devil's in the story for like
30 seconds,
literally about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
He shows him, he's like, "This is my kid," and that's like it.
Yeah. Still, I mean, you just brought him in for it. It's so good.
Yeah, no, it's amazing, and the fact that
I feel like we're having this like weird Neil Gaiman renaissance where people are finally taking his work and being like, "Hey, we have the budget to make the things that he's been imagining for so long."
Yeah, no, and this is what Terry Pratchett's work's been kind of toyed with on this. Like there were some like kind of made for TV movie things. Sean Astin was in a few of them of Terry Pratchett stuff. I'm happy that like if Neil Gaiman's work can come to screen, then shortly after Terry Pratchett's like I want the true Discworld series to come out as films because you know what? That's to me, all right. That's
the only flat Earth theory you'll accept.
Well, yes, because there's a turtle and lots of other turtles and some elephants involved. And they're flying through space, and we know that we can see them with a telescope. We can't see turtles under our planet with a telescope. They can. A la, we are not on a flat planet.
Yeah. All right, so
But what I'm saying is, like, if we get this Neil Gaiman renaissance, which you're talking about,
yes, I'm super excited about.
maybe in 10 years, instead of superhero movies, we
Sandman.
get Terry Pratchett.
Oh.
And we get the Discworld, like 20 movies of Discworld. And I get to be insanely happy.
I picture that something that like HBO would have the balls to make. They'd be like, let's just give it all the budget. Let's give it that Game of Thrones budget and go.
Ooh, like if every episode was an hour, like at least an hour and a half, and basically every episode was a book, then maybe. And by that I mean like every episode kind of needs to be like 2.5 hours.
So why are we talking about Neil Gaiman today?
All right, Neil Gaiman. Let's go back to the subject at hand.
Because there was a series that I remember watching when I was younger that I loved so very much. It was a dark series. It was a series that didn't pull any punches. It was a series called Jim Henson's The Storyteller. And it's exactly what you think it is. It was a series, a very limited run series, where you had a...
Done by HBO.
Yeah, done by HBO. And there was the storyteller character. And
John Hurt.
And he would tell you fables, Grimm's fairy tale style stories. And they did not pull punches the way
These were meant for children, but super not meant for children.
Right. I mean, it's the way that Grimm's fairy tales were. Like when they would tell a story.
This is the true story of like a fictional event that is we're going to tell kids.
Right.
It's not meant for kids, but we're going to tell kids.
They're like, we're going to tell like Aesop's fable, but we're going to tell it the way that it was actually told.
Yeah.
And that was the point of the storyteller, was to take these myths, put them to screen, but keep the darkness and the stories that exist.
Okay, so I can fully be on board with this because Jim Henson is super revered in this household. He's fucking.
He is a god. He is like a Jesus icon. We have like Jim Henson like candles that we just burn.
Yeah,
It's just like that's how we operate.
It's that level of like rarity. I guess that's a word. I guess I invented. Reverence is the correct one.
Reverence
to him, and that Neil Gaiman is going to game. I said it right the first time.
Gaiman.
I said it. I'm amazed. I actually was like, wait, I said it right. Neil Gaiman is going to be taking on the Jim Henson role of producing these things,
He's
doing
bringing
story
back
writer.
the series.
But for me, it's like, okay, but who can replace John Hurt? Because John Hurt, John fucking Hurt.
Yeah.
Like, he's amazing.
I think that's the most. I mean, that's the big question, right?
Yeah, like, because that comes down to who's going to be the storyteller. Because
Right.
on its surface, I'm like, yes, I am super on board with all of this. But I need the creepy old guy that's going to tell me the stories that make me scared, but also happy at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, I need that. And we haven't gotten that far in development yet.
There's a really great quote from Neil Gaiman here. It says, "Part of what fascinates me about the storytellers is stuff that we don't know. Who was the storyteller? Why was he telling us these stories? Was he a goblin? What kind of creature? What I'd love to do is an inside story as long as the outside story. We're going to find out a lot about who the storyteller is, but we're also going to find out things that we don't know, that even we don't know." This is an exact quote from him, by the way.
I love this.
We're going to begin in a northern kingdom where stories are forbidden. I suspect a lot of Nordic stories, considering the fact that he wrote the oh god, what was it?
Oh god, the one with the fucking dragon fighting thing. That's like epic poem.
Yeah.
Not Bob Mutt. That's the wrong fucking dragon.
Yes, wrong dragon. Jorgamund. That's who you're thinking of. The Nordic. Dragon.
Yeah, but he did the movie in the story. He did the thing. He did his adaptation of that story where he rewrote it. What the fuck was the name of it? It's a stupid epic poem.
So, yes. So Neil Gaiman goes on to say, we're going to begin in the Northern Kingdom where stories are forbidden and where the act of telling a story is liable and can get you imprisoned or executed. If you put a storyteller into that situation, things would need to start getting interactive. So it sounds like, whereas the previous HBO's The Storyteller was a passive thing where you got to meet the storyteller.
The storyteller literally told you a story. It was next to a fire and he told you the thing.
This sounds like we're going to be taking the storyteller and putting him in a situation where he has to tell stories.
See, yeah, that's what I'm interested in because we get to learn more about him, about the storyteller character. I was immediately thinking of, not Scariest Words to Tell in the Dark, the Crypt Keeper. Yeah. I was immediately like, okay, so the story, it tells from the crypt, is like, so the storyteller is the crypt keeper. We get to learn more about him by the stories that he tells and where he tells them at.
Yeah.
Like, that sounds really fucking cool. Because it's not going to be, kids necessarily won't understand what's happening, but the adults who watch will be like, oh shit, there's a bigger plot line here that we're watching. And that's a cool extra thing.
Either way, I'm a huge Neil Gaiman fan. I loved the original, the Storyteller. By the way, if you've never seen it, I don't know where you can find it online. You may have to go to some shady places.
I think if you have an HBO subscription, you have access to the old ones.
There you go. But yeah, definitely go and check that out because, I mean, it's a beautiful series. And yes, it is dark, but it's dark in the way that we talk about on this podcast for so many times that kids need to kind of have that little bit of darkness.
I don't think they've announced yet that... it's actually being done in conjunction with Jim Henson Studios.
Yep.
Did they announce that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
That's something that I
the
didn't
Jim Henson
read
Company
yet.
will be working with him on this.
Okay, good, because that's also one way to make it super creepy and weird.
Yep.
Is to have
puppets.
Jim Henson's puppet company.
Yep.
Which I actually, as a kid, really wanted to work for. I actually made some hand puppets and stuff and tried figuring all that out. It was a period of my life where I wanted to make puppets and I watched Labyrinth a lot.
Right, I can see that.
And that made me go...
You wanted to dance a magic fucking dance.
Not really. I kind of hated the David Bowie parts of it, but...
He was an amazing person, man. All right.
I liked the puppet parts of it. The David Bowie parts were a bit pretentious for me, I felt.
I'm sorry that his codpiece intimidated you.
It was more the super 80s hair. Like, I just...
It was a different time. All right, that's everything we have for
Harlequin
entertainment
pants.
news this week. We're going to take a small break. When we come back, we'll be going into our final segment, the epilogue.
Moving some shit, and we're in the epilogue, you fucking bitch. Everything's a song.
Everything is a song.
So I was thinking about where you get the name Gold Fist from. And it occurs to me that a gold fist is when a girl pees on your hand before you...
This is the kind of quality content that you only get from watching our Twitch stream.
Yeah. I thought about this outside while I was walking the dog.
Wow.
What the fuck else is a gold fist? Like, where's the Urban Dictionary on gold fist?
I will ask Doomfist. He would know.
Is gold fist his alternate evil
Yes.
cousin from the north?
Yes. And when he comes out, he goes.
No, he's not gold dust. Or I mean, he's like, I like gold. You weird Scottish guy. Should I feed the dog before we do this? It's
No, let's just knock this
look at her. She walked.
She's fine.
She walked over and was like, "It's 9
fine.
o'clock."
She's fine. Let's do this.
You have to wait 45 minutes, fatty.
It's not going to take that long. Let's do this.
45 minutes, fatty. All right, solid. Give me a solid 4-5. All right.
Just going to give you a solid something here in a minute.
Solid 4-4. In fact, I'm trying to get the number 45 eradicated from the numbers. It goes from 44 directly to 46. We're not going to use 45 anymore.
It's offensive to you as a white person.
It's offensive to everybody unless you're an orange person.
Okay. Just fucking go into this.
It took you a while to figure out where I was going with that.
That was well
to the
played.
very end.
Well played.
Epilogue.
Hey, adventurers, welcome back to the show. This is our epilogue. That's our main talking point for the podcast, sometimes related to the news, sometimes not. Oftentimes very parallel, and that's kind of what brings us to the epilogue this week. I was reading an article talking about how Netflix had just bought the rights to a Chinese movie that just released a couple weeks ago, and it's called The Wandering Earth. And in terms of in China,
I'm gonna stop this because the dog is coughing. We're gonna start this over again.
oh my god,
She's literally coughing through the entire thing.
okay,
I'm gonna go pee real quick. Hopefully she'll
my
stop
God.
coughing. I also have to pee, but fuck off. I'm gonna stop it. I'm gonna stop and go pee. She'll quit coughing.
I was trying to do a show here,
You were trying to, and then she started.
and then you ruined everything. You've ruined everything, Tony.
You know what? I'm feeding the dog now too.
Oh, God, she's gonna fucking and all she's gonna do is hack more while you do it. Good job at ruining the show, Tony.
This is happening.
All I've tried to do is have a respectful show, everyone. And this is what I have to put up with.
Apparently, I have trouble for feeding the dog. And Jenny hacking through the opening.
It's terrible. This is what I have to deal with every week. I try to have some level of professionalism, and it just gets ruined. I try and bring you the most quality show that I can every week. He just ruins it. Good point, Brooklyn. I need to remind Tony that before episode 300, we need to have our special emote for our Twitch channel so that you can have a special emote to take wherever you go. So you've reminded me of something very important. I appreciate that. Do any of you guys watch foreign films, whether it be horror or otherwise? I am genuinely curious about this because this is going to come up a lot in this discussion. Tony Brooklyn makes an excellent point before episode 300. You should probably make that emote of Jenny for our Twitch channel for our subscribers that have been so kind to subscribe to our channel.
Fine. I just have to I need to remember to get a subscription to Adobe.
Right.
That's really what's been holding me off on doing a lot of things.
Do for $15 for like a month or something, can't you?
Like 35.
Yeah. I can front
That was the reason. Like it was more like it was an annoying cost to get the thing. It was like, the free version's free, but it sucks, and yours is like just slightly more than I want to pay per month.
Right.
And I was looking for it because I was looking at the audio and video editing stuff that comes with it.
Yeah.
Because that makes it go to like 150 if I want. Because it's either you get the art stuff or all of it. There's no art. You can't just choose the thing you want. If you choose just the one program you want, it's like 50, which makes no fucking sense.
By the way, we have like 2 people that come into our Twitch chat regularly and also listen to our podcast regularly. We're discussing this idea of doing a Patreon. Is that something that people would be genuinely interested in? We haven't figured out like what the tiers for a Patreon would be at that point. Like
I've been trying to come up with ideas of what people like if you give us a certain amount. Mostly it's come down to like there'll be a couple like really high ones. Like if you give us $100 a month, it's a sponsorship at that point.
We just do whatever you want at that
Yeah,
point.
we sponsor your product or your name or what the fuck ever you want us to say. And I figured like, okay, you have like one really high one, and then you have like one mid-tier one where like you get to force us to play a video game or watch a movie or some shit, and then like the rest is just all like $5 and you get access
just do like
to
special
stuff.
epilogues that are just for Patreon members. It's just us having a discussion about whatever stupid topic you want. And be like, who's your favorite X-Men? Have a 20-minute discussion. Sure.
We could put like a vote thing on the Patreon page and be like, here's what we kind of want to talk about. What do you want? And then you get to choose the thing that we get to talk about. And it's just this what it's something that like I've been putting off for literally over a year. Like I've been looking into this since 100 episodes ago, so like 2 years ago.
Yep.
Was when I first started writing down notes for this shit, and obviously that didn't go anywhere.
We'll figure it out this go around. But
if anybody's interested, please like let us know, because
we are willing to produce extra content for money. We are horse
I am
like that.
more than willing to drink on camera for money.
Yeah.
I'm like Jim Belushi. Or John Belushi.
With a lot
I'm
less
like the
cocaine.
Belushi family. Just getting really fucked up on camera. And it's like, just let me get drunk.
All right, let's go ahead and jump into
Let's
this.
fucking drink an entire bottle of Jack Daniels in one take.
It's weird, I know. No human can actually do that but him.
He did it.
I know.
And he died
He
a
died.
little while later. Have you not watched the pseudo docu? It's a documentary. It's a historic, like it's where there's actors playing the characters, whatever that, can't remember what it's called right now.
Biopic.
Yeah, biopic of National Lampoon.
I have not watched that.
Like it's on Netflix, and it's fucking brilliant.
I will watch that then.
Yeah, because they have the documentary, which is like Fat, Drunk, Stoned, and Dead, and then I think that's the documentary, and then they have the biopic, which is I'd have to look up the name of it again.
I really like that Netflix has been doing that because they have like Glow, and then they actually have the documentary about Glow. Like this is the show, but like also this is
the thing is like
that
the
existed.
documentary about this came out before the movie did, because I think they just bought the rights to the movie, and watching the movie you're like it's fucking amazing because all the actors that are in it, all these really famous comedians, in fact a lot of people who were involved with this stuff were in there, and like kind of like a who's who of now going into it. I got hair in my mouth. But no, it's when you learn the history of National Lampoon and how it became, or how it started at such humble, like not necessarily humble beginnings, where kids were going to Harvard writing a fucking silly magazine for each other because they're like, oh, we're the smart, funny ones, which is what it truly was.
Yeah.
And then how that mutated into the magazine, and how the magazine, they didn't sign on like a week before they should have, and SNL took over instead of them.
So I have read the history of SNL book, and one of the more fascinating parts is not the history of like, oh, this is how SNL was made. It's literally
Motherfuckers stole their fucking shit.
Where they pulled all the actors. And
They pulled all of them from National Lampoon. They pulled the writers and actors because they were all involved in that.
was
They
them
were
and-
involved in the
them
National
and
Lampoon
Second
Radio
City.
Hour. The Second City was the one that was not everybody was involved, and like most of them weren't involved with National Lampoon, but everybody from New York, they took directly from the staff of that magazine.
Yeah.
And that was, and not just the magazine, but also from the National Lampoon Radio Hour and everything else that they were doing, the musical tour, weird off-Broadway program they were doing, and they literally stole the entire idea. It's disturbing to watch because you see, they can't like say it's like Seth Meyers or whatever, not Seth Meyers, the guy that created SNL.
Oh, right, yeah.
I think they actually they show him by name once, and then like the rest
Lorne
of
Michaels.
it, Lorne Michaels, and you're like, this is Lorne Michaels, and the next scene is everybody leaving to go do a different show. And it's like, oh, we shouldn't have invited Lorne Michaels to this one cast party because he literally stole everybody from them.
Yep.
But they created SNL, and that gave us like 5 good seasons
Hey, look, man, I'm a weekly watcher of SNL, and
Yeah.
I will defend it.
for some reason.
Like, my dream is to someday at least watch it live. I would love to.
You can just go to New York and do that, right?
Yeah, there's like a year plus waiting list.
Go
to
stab
go.
somebody. It's fine. Just
not how that
move them out
works.
of line. Just
Right.
pick them up and move them out of line.
Let's just knock this thing out.
It's exactly how you get into the line. Epilogue.
Hey, adventurers, welcome back to the show. This is the epilogue. It's our main talking point for the podcast, sometimes related to the news, sometimes not. Oftentimes pretty news adjacent. And the thing that kind of encouraged, or the thing that planted the idea of this epilogue in my head was I was reading an article this week talking about how Netflix just bought the rights to a Chinese movie that just came out called The Wandering Earth. And this movie has just released. It's only been out for about 2 weeks, and it's made about $6 million in the 2 weeks that it's been out.
6 million
or 600 million.
There's a huge difference between 6 million and 600 million.
It made $600 million in just 2 weeks of its release.
That's the reason why I was confused. I was about to say, is like, this is the most profitable film in Chinese history.
Yes.
Including Western films. And then you said 6 million. I was like, wait, am I wrong? I'm pretty sure that I'm right.
Cold head took over. I'm sorry.
Again, sorry.
Right.
James is still getting over a cold and just confused the hell out of all of us.
This movie just came out. It's been out for 2 weeks and made $600 million. Netflix bought it up. And that got me thinking about foreign movies being kind of adapted and brought over to America. And this is going to be a really weird topic, and I apologize for that, but I think there's a lot that we have to say about this. Now, before we get talking about any of the questions that I have for the panel about bringing foreign cinema to the States, I want to preface this entire discussion with this. We are not, and I'm looking at you, Tony, going to be elitist snobs and say that you need to watch a film in the original language with the original film and blah, blah, blah. Because the fact of the matter is, remakes of foreign films in America can serve as a really cool gateway drug to encourage people to watch the original.
Oh, no, I totally agree with that. And I'm not being elitist snob in that. And the only thing I'm really elitist in that is, which is the opposite. I like anime stuff. I can't watch it in its original language. It annoys the shit out of me. Sure. I watch the American dub of it. Right. Whereas live action stuff I watch in the original language, but with subtitles on because I'm a horrible person.
So I do want to, I don't want to be a dickhole about this, but let's negate anime out of this equation. I do not want.
So when I was looking through our list of stuff, and it showed a lot of, it showed a couple of the anime to live action transfers.
Yes.
In our list of movies that have come from other places outside and then been remade here. And I was like, those don't fit. So I'm really glad you're saying that.
Yes, let's separate anime from this whole equation. So what I want to talk about specifically is taking foreign films and adapting them to an American audience.
Let's say, I just start with Let the Right One In.
Yeah, sure. That's a great example because I watched both of those movies back
I watched the original before the American one came out.
I actually watched them both back to back, literally the same day.
And that's, I mean, that I wish I'd done it that way, but I watched the first one because it was like, oh, this movie came out and it's supposed to be this great horror movie. And I watched it, was like,
the American
that was
version?
really, the original one was like the
Swedish version.
The Swedish one. And I was like, this is an amazing story. And it's being remade. I have to watch the original first. And I watched the original, like, this is brilliant. And then, like, a couple months later, I watched the American version. Went, it's the same fucking movie. I'm happy.
But with like 25% less, like, pedophilia. I don't know.
It was the same movie, but a little bit different. Okay,
but a little less child touchy.
But, yeah, it was. But you know what? It was a little less underage vampire touching underage children thing. Okay,
but. That's a very important thing,
great horror movie.
Right? Like, you saw that there was going to be a remake being made, and then you said, I want to watch the original too.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about this idea of bringing foreign cinema to America as a whole. I don't want it to be a limited discussion. So I have some questions for the panel here. Let's just kind of break this whole thing down. So when it comes to bringing foreign cinema to the States, how important is it to preserve the cultural integrity of the film? Before everybody gets really defensive with this question, the reason that I ask it is that because sometimes folklore does not translate well to America, i.e., a spirit that would only reside in Japan making its way stateside seems a bit weird. Or say a movie like Pan's Labyrinth, which does take place in a very specific location in a very specific time.
Okay, so this is actually the one example that I wanted to bring up in this discussion.
Okay.
And that is how you need to have a reverence for the story and character elements, but the cultural changes of a story are very important. This is specifically what I'm talking about is the original version of Akira Kurosawa's Seven Samurai, and I actually have to look this up. John Sturgis's version of God damn it, I have it literally in front of me. Magnificent Seven.
Yeah.
And how one is a Japanese film dealing with very Japanese things, and one is an American film dealing with Western. Literally, it's a Western. Right. They're very different subjects, but it is the same characters, the same universe, basically the exact same story. In fact, the writers, the Japanese writers, were listed as the writers for that film because they took this damn same script. They just changed the settings and the motives and everything to the point where Akira Kurosawa saw Magnificent Seven, went over to was it John or David? Fucking, I always forget this. I always forget his name. Went over to John, and met him, and said, and he gave him a katana. He's like, as a ceremonial piece. He's like, you deserve this for what you did. Wow. You took my film, which has gone down in history as one of the best films ever made, changed it for a different audience, and made it just as good, or if not better.
Right.
Like, that in itself is amazing.
But do you feel like something like Pan's Labyrinth needs to change what it is culturally? So Pan's Labyrinth takes place in a very specific time in history.
Yeah, this is dealing with the Spanish Civil War.
Right. But if you watch the original version, it's subtitled because that's the language.
Yes. And then the other version was they just basically reshot the scenes in English.
Okay.
Because the actors could speak English, so they just did that instead. And
I only watched the subtitle one. There's another version, so
I honestly don't remember because half the film nobody's talking. It's just watch weird shit unfold.
Yeah.
I think that see what I'm talking about is a little remake for a different audience,
right? With
Magnificent Seven, with the changes of Guillermo del Toro's work. That's more of a subtitles being added to a film and being released here, and those are two different subjects because then you have. Not the girl who kicked the hornet's nest, the one before that.
Sure, the girl with the dragon tattoo.
Yeah, girl with the dragon tattoo. You have the original film trilogy that came out before we even released the first American film, the David Fincher one, which the sequel just came out and nobody paid attention to it because nobody cared anymore. Yeah. But the original trilogy was like this amazing work of films. And then David Fincher made one and was like, holy shit, it's just as good, but it's also David Fincher. He's a fucking amazing director. He could direct himself out of a fucking box.
Okay, so
and that's where the difference is the difference between a remake of another culture's film, much like Let the Right One In, or a film like Roma, which just won Best Picture, and that is a film that is in a different language and is only going to present it in a different language.
Right. So when we're talking about the cultural integrity of a film, you know, when I talk about things like folklore, let's rewind to the past a little bit. We had this weird renaissance, 10 plus years ago, where we had things like The Ring and The Grudge that came over with remakes.
I hate to tell you how old you are, but that was like 20 years ago.
All right, then I'm old. And now that we've established that, they managed to keep the weird folklore of the area, which is Japan, and bring it.
The Ring one worked pretty well. Some of the other ones didn't work as well because I think it was the reason why The Ring worked whenever you took the original version and the American version and both of their sequels, because they both had mini sequels. Yeah. When you took those is because the mythology was more universal versus some of the other Japanese horror remakes that dealt way too much with the idea of like Japanese demons that live inside of things. Yeah. And it just got too convoluted when you brought it to America.
Uzumaki would not work.
Yeah, Uzumaki, whenever I watched that film, when I watched it in Japanese, and I went, holy shit, this is awesome. And I never want to have an American version of that because it wouldn't make any fucking sense. Right. Trying to Americanize or Westernize such a cultural story is just going to leave the audience being confused and misunderstood.
There's a movie that I own that's it's a weird kind of pseudo horror Japanese flick called Talking Head, and the premise behind it is really about it's a very Lovecraftian concept. It's like The King in Yellow, essentially. The story of The King in Yellow in Lovecraft is that it's a play that never gets finished because by the time that you start getting towards the end, it's essentially summoned an elder god. Talking Head is an anime that's kind of based around that same concept, where it's an anime that a bunch of people are trying to write and direct an anime that's never been completed because the script drives everybody on the set insane, essentially.
Okay.
And it's something that I feel like that could be adapted, but you would need to change it to a different medium to make it more relatable to an American audience. You wouldn't make it, a bunch of people writing and directing anime. You would have to say like, all right, let's make it a film or whatever. Like we have to adapt it in kind of a different sense to show the madness that's going on with this. So there is times where I feel like when we do want to take these great stories from other places and adapt them and Americanize them, we can do that without, we do need to talk about the elephant in the room, whiting it up, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is where we said we don't want to talk about anime adaptations, but we kind of have to when we get to that point. We have to talk about Alita Battle Angel. We have to talk about Ghost in the Shell. We have to talk about that one that was in the 2000s. I can't remember the name of. That was an MTV series.
I don't know. They did fucking like
Aeon Flux. That's what I'm thinking of. Yeah. Which was in a Western story to begin with. Yeah, it was a Western story done by a Japanese animation team anyway.
But written by a guy who was Chinese American.
Yeah, it's a little bit all over the place, which is kind of like the 90s MTV was. The 90s were in general, honestly. And we have to kind of take like The Ring or any of the offshoots of The Ring after that into consideration, and how you're changing the protagonists or the antagonists, how you're going to culturally change the significance of the creatures. We talk a lot about horror on this, honestly, because horror is so cheap to make, and so many developing locations or places that don't have like the studio budget that America does, the Hollywoodization. They can do horror films for very cheap and make very interesting, unique things that we will find a way to spend way more money remaking here. And your cat is.
I'm gonna provide you an example real quick. When we talk about the idea of remaking something that has some kind of cultural significance to it. So we've been talking about The Ring and The Grudge, and it's easy to kind of go to horror with all this. Let's talk about something very specific, and that is The Raid. Okay, the movie The Raid.
Okay, yeah.
So the movie The Raid, if you're unfamiliar with it.
We watched it recently last year. Yeah. We had guys' night where we were like, we're going to watch The Raid and Raid 2, and got about halfway through The Raid 2 and stopped.
So The Raid is a story that takes place in a very specific location in the world that the ghetto, in air quotes that I'm using here, is the backdrop for it. And this the social economic center of this place is very important.
Yeah, no, understanding the cultural significance of mobsters owning a city block and the public housing within that, to the point where the police can't go anywhere near that location, and then having to fight their way through hundreds of thugs.
Is that something that when we try and remake it in America, we should try and find an American equivalent, or should we cast Chinese actors or whatever and just do a shot-for-shot remake of it, just making it with English?
I'm not a big fan of the shot-for-shot remake, and honestly, we did.
I don't know, Psycho is pretty good.
I was actually going to say Psycho.
That's a different story. That's Psycho,
let's not get into that. I was going to say we did remake The Raid. We just made it about a comic book character from England instead, who has a mask over his face and shoots a gun. It's the exact same fucking story, pretty much. Sure. And Judge Dredd, I enjoyed the hell out of, but it's the fucking Raid.
Right.
It's pretty much the same fucking story.
Judge Dredd's been around since
that story from Judge Dredd is The Raid. Those two films are nearly identical. Story-wise, character-wise, a lot of that story is very much the same. Yeah. And that's how you can westernize or westernize stories from other countries. Is you take the core elements and just find a way to fit it within this culture.
The Raid, Detroit.
Yeah.
that fits.
Yes, it does. It totally works. Or, Judge Dredd, because...
So Americanizing a remake isn't bad. But, and I want to get into some sensitive topics
we've
here.
had some very bad ones done, though.
I want to get into a sensitive topic here, though. If a movie is, say, Chinese in origin, and we decide to take an American we want to make an American version of it. We have a problem here in modern Hollywood where we kind of whitewash all of it. I personally feel that if we're going to be doing a remake, you should be kind of paying tribute to the original writers and creators and actors that work behind it. I'm not saying that every person on the cast of the Detroit version of, The Raid, has to be of that same ethnicity, but I'm saying that you should bring in more of those actors. You should be having that representation there. And we are having this discussion about representation in Hollywood right now. That's kind of a hot button issue. But when we talk about remaking foreign films, we should definitely be having more representation when it comes to that.
Okay, so I do have to throw out a question in this. I'm going to bring up literally the first film I brought up.
Okay.
If we, as a society right now, tried to remake Seven Samurai,
Right.
we recently remade Magnificent Seven, and it was fucking god-awful.
Right.
If we tried to westernize that original film again, I feel like it would become a parody of itself, and it would be a huge slap in the face to what the original was.
Right.
Versus the original film being Japanese and then the remake being American Western was an homage to the original, taking literally the same fucking script and portraying it to a different audience. It was actually better for the story. The whitewashing of that story was better for it than what the other options would have been, even today.
But that is the
exception to the rule.
It really is the exception to the rule. Like, yes, that was great, but we live in a time right now where saying, hey, look how whitewashing this one fucking movie is so great. We don't need to have that example.
And I'm specifically bringing up a movie from the 1960s.
Yeah.
That is culturally, let's also put that out there. I'm bringing up a film from the 1960s where if you were being like, let's watch this Japanese film in the 1960s, you're like, you're a commie, let's kill you.
Right.
Like, you don't do that. so you have to do things like change it.
I think one of the things that we're talking about here when it comes to foreign films being brought over to America is that and when we talk about films, we're talking about like cinematic masterpieces. We're talking like the highest quality content you can bring in from, all across the seas, bring them to America, remake them here. We're not in disagreement that those movies, are bad. In the sense that like they should never be shown to American audiences. We need to expose these great films to more and more people.
Honestly, where we are right now as a society, and specifically with how we take in our film, our visual entertainment, we no longer really have a need for the westernization remakes of things.
Right.
We have Netflix and Amazon and Showtime and HBO and all of these companies, Hulu, fighting for the rights to all these films internationally for the chance to either, one, remake them, or two, what they'd prefer to do, which is just show them. Netflix, in this case with the Chinese film, isn't going to remake this. They are just going to show us the Chinese version.
No, I don't think so. I think
you don't think so?
I think Netflix is actually vying to remake this movie.
They're going to remake a movie that is the most profitable film in Eastern history.
You know why? Americans don't like to read.
Yeah, but Netflix has done this thing where they subtitle the living fuck out of everything.
I understand
we have
that.
so
but
many
we,
series.
as Americans, do not like to read. Like, we pride ourselves on being super cultural and we are like the most cultured people in the world. No, let me tell you, as a person who gets off a 10-hour shift, I will come home and be like, man, I really want to watch that movie, but it is subtitled, man.
I just can't put my brain through all that right now.
You got to catch me on 2 p.m. on a Saturday to convince me that I'm going to watch a subtitled
And you know what
movie.
Netflix has done for all of those? They've dubbed all of them.
Sure, I understand that.
They've done one of the shows that I really enjoyed. Fucking 3% is a Portuguese, or it's not Portuguese. It's in Portuguese, but it's a South American, whatever country in South America that speaks Portuguese. The language is in Portuguese. I've watched that entirely with.
No, I love the fact that Netflix is really bringing all of these great foreign films to
and
a modern
foreign
audience.
series onto
It's awesome. I love it. I absolutely.
They've been dubbing more and more live action shows and bringing them to a Western audience
cinema
from across the world.
To be great cinema, to be truly exposed to the American masses, and I hate to say it because I'm gonna sound like a dick, you gotta fucking recast it, redo it, put it in English.
So you're saying that like, no matter what, some whitewashing has to occur.
I'm not saying that whitewashing has to occur. What I'm saying is that if we take a Chinese movie, we could still keep Chinese actors as long as they're Chinese American and can speak English. And I'm sorry for people who are not watching us on Twitch. I'm using
a lot of air. You've been using air quotes for like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, that you have to make it accessible to a modern audience, right? You have to speak proper English. Like, it's great movies sometimes need to be retranslated for a widespread audience, and I don't think that it's necessarily a bad thing, right? Let's go back to our original example of like Let the Right One In.
Okay.
That movie is almost shot for shot minus 12% child touching the original.
Yeah.
Right. And the movie doesn't lose anything for that. It became a horror classic, not only internationally, but also something that in America we saw people like going out in droves just to watch this movie. They had no clue what the fuck it was. And so I think that it is important that we start importing more and more movies and redoing them, but we must have a reverence for the classics. And yes, something like Seven Samurai versus the Magnificent Seven is a different story, but we should be keeping an eye on things like race and culture and making sure that those things remain in the stories as we translate them, which brings me to my final question for the panel as we wrap this whole thing up. And that is, given the tough times that we are in politically, do you think that more foreign cinema being brought and translated over to the States while keeping non-white actors in their respective roles, etc., could be a way, a hopeful way, that we could use film to maybe show and expose people to other cultures that maybe they normally wouldn't have exposure to?
I want to say yes, just based on how much Netflix, Hulu, all of the online streaming platforms have done for taking a series or a movie that is in a different language, from a different culture, from a not American place, and bringing it over, just dubbing it and saying, here's the thing, enjoy. And they've done that for many series that have been great, many movies that have been great. I've loved a lot of them. But based on where we are right now, and this is coming purely after the Oscars last night, super not going to work, at least the way you're envisioning it.
Right.
Whenever you have 3 movies that have persons of color being one of the leads in them, and the one that is about the white person saving the day is the one that wins Best Actor, or best film, mm-hmm. It's not going to take the cake. No, I'm sorry. No, Black Klansman was a better film.
I'm not saying that bringing
Black Panther was a better film.
I'm not saying that bringing foreign films to America
if they're not changing it, because we are going to force fuck the fun and the good and the creativity out of them if we have to whitewash them and make them what the Green Book was. Mm. And yes, for a piece of history where you understand what the Green Book was, should have been 5 minutes and a much bigger tale and not the point of a white person saving a black person. And that's why I'm saying taking a foreign film and making it for a white audience, but keeping 2 of the ethnic characters the same is going to do nothing but harm at where we are right now.
Okay, I can respect that opinion. I mean, that's why I kind of put it up to the board, is that this is a very difficult topic to talk about because there are so many great foreign films that deserve to be, seen by a Western audience. But a lot of
seriously, Netflix did that with Roma this year.
Yep.
And it won best director for Alfonso Cuarón. In fact, fucking like 5 out of the last 6 years for best director have gone to a Mexican director. That's how good Mexican directors are right now, by the way. Mm-hmm. But Roma, a movie that entirely is in another language, that it won so many awards. That's what we need to have. We need to have this, what Netflix did, said, fuck you. We're not just remaking this shit, which is why I don't think they're going to remake this Chinese film. They're going to release it. They're going to release it with either subtitles or they're going to release it dubbed and saying, fuck you, this is what it is. We're showing you the damn story.
Yeah, Netflix might do that, but a movie that makes $600 million in its first 2 weeks, somebody's going to grab that and say, we need to remake it for a Western audience. I'm sorry.
But Netflix got the rights. Netflix got the rights, and Netflix is the one that's going to say what they did. And if they do what they did with Roma, which is say, you made the thing, we release the thing.
Right.
That's the Netflix that I actually like, even though they're a giant corporation and I should hate them at this point because of how much money they make. They are doing it right. Yeah. They are actively making they're keeping the integrity of filmmaking alive as much as they can. And when it comes to whenever I saw them buying the rights for this, my mind was not, it did not go to remake at all. It was you are getting a subtitled or dubbed version of this. Right. You can choose whichever one you want. They'll release it in multiple languages for the rest of the world. It'll be in French and German and Spanish and Argentinian. It'll be fucking every language they want to release it in, that they can release it in. And it will be available because that's why they bought the rights, not to remake it. Why would you end up spending that much money to remake a film that has made this much money when you can take the film that's made this much money and just put different voices over it? Okay.
So this has been a really weird kind of deep topic. As somebody, both Tony and I are big fans of watching foreign cinema. And I don't want to sound pretentious about that, but we are. Like, there's a lot of really great Spanish horror alone is such a great fucking dive into Spanish horror if you've never done that before. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to kind of bring this topic to the forefront and have us discuss whether or not remakes and reimaginings of foreign films, are they important? Should we keep doing them?
We didn't even get into the Dracula. I just want to side tangent for 1 second. The creation of the original film Dracula and the Mexican version of Dracula were filmed on the exact same sets, using the exact same costumes, with the same cameras and same lighting. Yep. And the Mexican one is so much better.
A crew from Hollywood and a crew from Mexico.
Yeah, and the Mexican one is this weird sexually dark film.
Oh, it is
and
so much darker.
Bela Lugosi's amazing in the fucking original, but
watch the Mexican version.
Watch the Mexican version; it's a better film.
It's so good. All right, that's everything that we have for the show this week. Do you have any opinions about like foreign films being brought over to the States?
We should be making films simultaneously in one location for multiple different languages. Why aren't we doing that?
The Mexican version's always going to be better.
I mean, no, I'm only saying we're going to shoot a Chinese, a French, a German, an English version of the movie all at the same time, all with the same actors.
I don't want to see the German version of Dracula.
Okay, I mean, that's up to you. That's fine.
That seems very scary and not in a fun way. All right, that's everything we have.
They're just going to build like IKEA furniture and not stab each other in the heart.
That is true. If you have any opinions about foreign movies being brought to the States or any of the topics we've been talking about this week, Tony, where can they find us?
Facebook.com/TheSilly Nerd. Like, share with your friends. At The Silly Nerds, our Twittery thingy-ma-bitch. TheSillyNerd.com is our website. You can read some shit. You can donate to the show on there. Twitch.tv/Silly Nerds, where you can watch at 7:30 Central Monday-ish. 7:30-ish Monday-ish.
Yeah.
And other times. If you just follow us on Facebook or Twitter, you'll get the We're Going Live announcement, and you can hit us up on there. We got episode 300, beating down our dicks like the fucking Yeti at a goddamn Bush concert. I don't know where that fucking analogy came from.
We are ill-prepared for this situation, but we are trying to do everything
much like I was for that analogy.
It's going to be a lot of fun when it comes to episode 300. Please look forward to it. Until next week, Tony... oh man, I'm done. I'm exhausted.
Normally, this is where you say for James, this is Tony.
That's
I
my
said for Tony,
sick brain.
This
finally.
is for James, and you say good night, and I say good game,
and I'm saying we're done.
Okay. Like, I literally did the whole ending for us.
I appreciate that. Like, again, thank you all of you for sticking around. Seriously, but I will not be sick next week. I promise.
Yeah, you're still nasally.
I'm so nasally right now.
I'm just really hoping that like I've stayed enough away from you that like I've been actively being not near you. So like the last thing I need to be is
I've
get
drank
sick.
from like 3 of your beers.
Stop drinking my beers.
Thanks for sticking around, Brooklyn. We really appreciate it.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and sign us out.